Dr. Cassie Huckabee. Actually, no, you don't go by Cassie Huckabee. Do I have to edit that out? Or is
let's keep that. I think that's going to be everyone like, wait, what? Yeah.
Dr. Cassie Huckabee. Yeah. How do you pronounce your
Wuthrich?
Wuthrich.
Yeah.
What is that? Are you
German,
Germany
and Swiss.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they speak the same language, so it could be either.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay. Cool. Well, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having us.
Immediately wrong. Yeah. Thanks for having both of you.
Yes.
I think it's most appropriate to start, as I do with a lot of guests who I've not had on, not done Instagram Lives with, done events with, to have you just introduce yourself, your background, and your journey, because that's part of your story.
Yeah.
Your journey of unbecoming, if you want to call it that. So let's start there.
Yeah. So my journey started West Texas. Grew up on a farm. There's 4 kids, and we basically were kind of isolated from everything. That's the irony of everything, how you kind of go full circle. So we grew up with farm animals, did the whole farm life, and then went to public schools, moved to a city, even though it was super tiny, still in Texas. And then I thought I was going to be a vet, and eventually went to humans and did medical school. But my whole plan, it was all perfect. I was staying in where my family's from, and going to do med school and going to stay there and put my roots down where my roots are from. And then life just started that unbecoming process, just like you said. And really what triggered it for me was I had a series of vaccines just because I was supposed to, and just never really thought about it, trusted my doctors, and, they were the gold standard, and so whatever they said, I never questioned it. I was a good student. I was like that stereotypical, like, good West Texas girl. And it wasn't until after the second set of that series that things started happening. And I started having symptoms, and then after the third one, I had drastic changes in my physical body. And, being like growing up on a farm, we didn't really have health stuff. We're a very robust, strong family. And so like when I would go to the doctor, she would just say, "It's your genetics." And then I would be like, that would sound great for somebody that didn't have the family standing beside them that I have. So that's the first time that certainty in the answer didn't match my reality. So I couldn't make it fit anymore, because it was like, look at my dad, look at my mom, look at my brother, look at my sisters. It's not our genetics. And it wasn't my story until I blindly just received, these 3 things that you told me that I needed for no reason. Or out of a fear reason, maybe.
Did they at least acknowledge that it could have been?
No.
Oh, okay. Got it.
So it was strictly put on genetics, and then things progressively got worse, and got to a point where I was diagnosed with multiple autoimmune conditions, said they were incurable, and again, just said it was genetics. But again, you look at my family, and you're like, I would love for it to make sense. I honestly would, but it doesn't make sense. So there was a crack in the safety that I had from that temporary savior, right? And, we have to use those words loosely, but at the time it wasn't a loose savior for me. Like, medicine was what was going to keep me well. Medicine was what I was giving my life to. They were the experts. They knew everything, right? They could go against death in my eyes. And so after that, and after what I started experiencing in my body, and they were telling me one thing, I was experiencing another, you just get to that breaking point of like, if you have any level of intelligence, at some point you're like, just the simple phrase, it doesn't make sense, right? And that was the, the little tiptoe into the world that broke me completely open. And then I was available for a conversation, because their treatment for what I had was just horrific, and was like, basically, you can go blind, you'll be infertile, like everything worse than where I was already at. And I was just like, again, like, even marketing and sales would have something better to offer me at that point.
Was it a variety of like immunosuppressive drugs?
Yeah. And so, and a lot of it was experimental, and because the combination of things that I quote unquote had, and again, I'm in my 20s, and it was a drastic change. I went from being athletic and clear and energized and all these things to a very drastic change. And so again, I'm trying to that's when I started the journey of kind of being my own detective and piecing things together on my own of like, this just doesn't make any sense, and I need it to make sense. I'm a person, I like for things to make sense, right? Most of us generally do. And then it finally got to the point where I didn't want to go their route because, again, just super practical rationality was like, so I get worse as the treatment. And I'm like, well, then I'm better off just being this bad. Like, I'll just be this bad because I can manage it, and I can still go to school, and I'll still go to med school. And so all of that was kind of going on at the same time. And then, you know, when your foundation's cracked, you become available for more information. And so I was in a coffee shop. I still remember that day, you know, doing all my stuff for my medical school application and MCAT and everything. And I heard this conversation at a little table beside me. And they were like, yeah, there's this quack doctor in town, and he's healing people, and apparently he cured this and this and this. And then luckily they said his name. And so I just wrote it down, and I was like, I'm not going to do anything with that. Because I wasn't really into the world of like, I believed in God, but I wasn't really into that world of like life working out for me, synchronicities, like that part of my mind. I was more like books and logic and rationality, and then Christianity on the side. And so I hadn't really like integrated all of those parts of me. And so I just wrote it down. It was just like, okay, fun fact. Like, I'm not going to do anything with that. And then literally within a day, it just was like on my soul, like, look up the name. And so I looked up the name, found this clinic, like, and online it wasn't anything impressive. So I still had time to do shadowing with all the other hospitals. And I just reached out to the clinic that was actually not too far from where my parents lived. And I just wanted to shadow. I was literally going in there to like just spy, basically. But then they like responded, and they were like, well, we need you to fill out all this paperwork. And I'm like, I had already done all this with like the regular hospital and other clinics and the oncology. Like, why do y'all need more? Anyway, so I had to fill out all this information to go shadow there. And like the first day that I actually got to be there, which is kind of cool that we even kind of alluded to this even with how you do your podcast, was the MD was the head of that clinic. And it wasn't the man that I had written down the name, but he was associated. And his name was Dr. Edwards. And he was like, you probably want to go grab a drink and go to the restroom. I'm like, one patient's like, what, 5 minutes? I'm good. And he's like, oh no, like 2 hours. And I was like, one patient, 2 hours. Because like in the hospital, we did rounds. Like we did our big meeting in the morning. We already knew what we were prescribing before we even went to their door. Like, so it was just like, wait, what? I'm going to sit in here with you and one patient for 2 hours. And so then I was just like, okay. And like, you know, when you're trying to make it as a student and everything, I was just like, yeah, of course this is going to take 2 hours. I will go get a drink. I will go to the restroom. And so after that first visit, something in me, it was like I was sitting behind him watching this interaction, and like everything that mattered to me as a human mattered to him as a doctor. And I was like, yes, but what? Yeah. And like I had feelings, because like when I was in the traditional hospital setting, I would be pulled aside, like when we were doing rounds, because I would cry, like if a kid with cancer passed away. And then I would be told, you're not going to make it. Like if you keep behaving like this, you're not going to make it. You're smart, but you can't do this. And like I have grace now on the understanding of, in that model, no. And like in a way, you're right. I'm not going to make it in your model. You're exactly right, but not because of a lack in me, but because of the humanity in me. It doesn't fit here. It couldn't fit here. It shouldn't fit here. But I would take it personally and be like, okay, don't feel less, or like just put on a brave face, poker face it throughout the day. And the second you get home, cry your eyes out. and like write it down and pray about it. And like, cause it was like, I need to be a doctor, but I love people. And it was like, in what world are those two things not good to coexist? Cause it wasn't like I like people. No, I loved them. And so when they hurt, I hurt. And then it was like, that doesn't belong here. And so that was going on in like, you know, in this whole thing that was this constellation of me was happening behind this physician in this encounter. And then after it, like I couldn't even hide it. Like I'm just like physically changed and just trying to compose myself because I was just like, whatever this is, I have to give, like, I've never felt like this in my whole entire life. Like, and it was so funny because on my medical school application, I talked about passion. And I literally went home and I wadded it up. And I was like, that was plastic passion. Mm. That was an intellectual based, passion didn't even match anymore. Mm. And whatever I felt in this quiet space, in my heart, in my soul, in my spirit, like goosebumps from head to toe, on a person I didn't know, but I knew them more than I knew people that were like my friends out of nowhere. Like it was just like, this, whatever is burning, whatever just got lit in me, this is passion. Mm. And this I have to follow with all of everything that I've got. And when I made that commitment to me, it's like life's like, okay, well, show me. And so I literally, like after that day at that clinic, I called my mom and I'm like, Mom, you know, she was diagnosed with something. I'm like, you don't have this, and we're gonna do this. And she was just like, are you, why don't you come out to the house? Like, you're fine. Cause I was like, I'm not gonna go to medical school. Like, I'm changing everything. She's like, just come out to the house, okay? Like, I promise you, I'm better than I've ever been. And, but it was just like one of those things where I fit. You know, it's kind of like that, the conversation of belonging. You don't have to try to belong. Mm. And when you're trying, it's probably because you don't belong. And so then when you belong, it's like, there's no like struggle. Like all of me says yes to all of this. And it's not like I have to go, like, cause in the other, I hated going to the hospital. I look back in my journal from when I was in college, and it says, I love people, but I hate medicine.
Wow. And
I didn't see that till like a year ago. And I was like, exactly. That was exactly it. But when I found this other world, it was like this oxygen that I had never had, even like growing up, right? And then what life did was it wanted me to choose it. And so for me to choose it, because there was this other beautiful moment that happened at that clinic, because I just kept showing up. It's like, oh yeah, do you have space tomorrow or all the days? Could I be there every day that you have it? Yeah. And so I just kept showing up, and then finally, like, he saw it. And one day he was like, I have a surprise for you. And I was like, okay. We cured what? And he was like, it's actually a man. And I was like, oh, okay, that works too. And he's like, his name's Dr. Hines. And I was like, that's the name I wrote down in a coffee shop that even got me here.
Wow.
And he's like, he comes once a month and takes the harder cases, and I think you would enjoy seeing what he does. And like all of me was just like, okay. And so then I spent a day with him, and again, it was like another level of like my intellect and everything just went again. And then I just remember being like, whatever, because like I knew what an MD was. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I love it. And the way you did it, I love the way that he changed everything. He gave up everything to pursue this other path. And then when I was in that other encounter, I just remember being like, what are you? Yeah. Like, I don't even care what you're called at this point. Whatever you are, I want to be, whatever that is. And that's when he was like, you need to go and do naturopathic medicine instead. And I was like, just write that word down, because I literally have never heard that word in my life before, ever. And so he like wrote it down, and I was like, do they have, is it like regular medical schools? And he's like, no, you're going to have to look at, it's totally different. And he was like, and I want you to go to this school, and these are the reasons why. And so he wrote it down because it was very science-based in the curriculum, and there were just reasons behind why he chose what he chose. And so I was like, okay, and literally called. They had a few seats left in that class, and there was a sister campus in San Diego. And so I was like, sunshine, sign me up. And then I had this like crazy moment that I will never forget. And probably the most important thing maybe to share with people, like when you're changing your life and you're following all of this. I went to my mentor at the time, the MD at that clinic, because I couldn't decide. I was like, should I just go the allopathic route, the safe route, the one that I know, and then change and do natural on the tail end, like you did? And literally, I never had questions because I was just absorbing everything behind him. So this was my one time to have a question for him. And I was like nervous bringing it up to him, made time to stay after so I could ask him this very important question. And so then I asked him, like, should I do allopathic and then just add on the natural and do integrative and functional and all of that like you did? Or should I just jump into this other that, no offense, but when I look it up, not great.
Pseudoscience, quackery.
Quack, like words I had to Google words to figure out why it was so bad. And then like no job security. Like I just spent, all of this time in my life, paid all of this money, did all of this stuff, checked all of the boxes to be the top of the top to go into this other medicine. And so I'm going to give it all up to choose this thing that like nobody really has anything good to say about it. And he just looked at me and said, I can't answer that. And I was like, you've got to be freaking kidding me. I've had one question. And I like was so mad. And I was like, of course you can't answer that question. And I didn't understand why I did it until like many years down the road. But there was this beautiful moment because there was a song called Oceans by Hillsong.
Yep.
And every single time I went to that clinic, it would play on the radio. And it started just being like this, like, again, I wasn't into synchronicities at the time, but I was like, oh, funny, that song again. Of course that song again. And then I started like listening to the lyrics and I'm like, that song, this song. And then I started expecting it. And that was the only day that it didn't play, when I showed up that morning. And so I was like, okay, that's my sign. I'm gonna go and do my plan, screw all of this. Like, I'm gonna go with my security. I'm gonna go with what I know. I'm gonna know with what I'm proud of. And the second I left that clinic that day and got in my car, turned it on, guess what?
Hillsong.
From
Oceans.
the beginning, perfect timing.
Wow.
And so then I was like, ugh. Why? Because I lost the certainty of even being like, I'm not going to do it. And I was put in a position to say, you choose. Do you choose what is safe, where, your ego, all of this, like even just the practicality of it. You've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to check every box. You spent all of these hours of shadowing. You took the MCAT. You did all this stuff. What are you going to do? And in that moment, for the first time in my life, I bet on a feeling. I gave up everything. And it literally, like the imagery that I had in my mind was like I was holding 2 red balloons. And it was like, you can't take both of them. And when you let go, you have to let it go. You can't hold on to the bottom of this little string and be like, well, maybe. It was like, no, a decision is you let it go completely, no matter what. And so in that moment, in the car, I was like, I'm gonna do it. I gotta get to California in 2 weeks. I've gotta tell, my husband at the time, we're moving. You don't have a job yet. And I have to. And even have to go tell my family, who was like once the best for me and knew how hard I worked and knew everything I put into it. I didn't play during college. I didn't party. I had a vision. I had a goal, right? And so everyone's just kind of in this moment of like, we love you, but are you sure? And like for the first time, like it wasn't a mind intellect, I'm sure, because I've got all the logistics, I've done all the numbers, I've like have spreadsheets and all of these things to prove why what I'm about to do is the right thing. It was, I don't have any of that. But I have an experience of a summer in a clinic that did more for me than years in a hospital. And instead of running away, I wanted to run. I couldn't get enough of it. I couldn't get enough of it. And it wasn't approving. It wasn't it was the truest sense of humanity, service. And then there was a moment where I was like, even going back to that journal entry, I didn't hate medicine. I love medicine. But the word was captured and I just didn't know it yet. Right?
You hate this representation of it.
Exactly. It's not medicine. That's why we hate it. It's not medicine. But it's so close and it fills a gap of a story of fear. And so it was that I didn't like. But I was like, what's cool now is I'm going to do a medicine that I love. And I'm going to love people. And loving people is going to make the medicine better, not worse. And then when you put that in, then I started looking at research differently. And because then I had to go through medical school, which was a whole new unbecoming, right? Because I thought I was going to go into a school system that was going to mirror what I had just seen in that clinic. No. It was a green version of what I had experienced in the hospital. So
that's what I was going to ask earlier when you brought up going to naturopathic medical school was like, in my humble opinion, every single version of medical schooling, no matter the type, every single type of licensure, no matter the type, I've said this so many times on this podcast, every single one of them is coming from a variety of flawed, unproven presuppositions about human physiology, about what we even are. And because of that, they're never going to get it right. So no matter what, you're going to have to do some more unbecoming after that.
And that's exactly what I had to do. Because that's when I was in it, it was again like, well, then I've been duped. Because instead of using statins, we're going to talk about red yeast rice. And then if something's too scary, we're going to refer out. When what I had seen in that clinic was exactly the opposite. And I, again, messaged, I didn't have much contact with those two. I would call them my only mentors that were gracious enough to let me be their shadow. But I did message because I was just livid. Again, I was like, I gave up my whole everything to come in here, and you guys are referring out cancer cases, and you guys are scared of this, and you're scared of this, because it was again and so I contacted him, you said to go to this school, and he's like, I did, and I still mean it. I'm like, they're not doing what y'all were doing. And he's like, Cassie, you have to get a stamp on your butt. And I was like, do what? And he's like, get a stamp on your butt, and then the medicine really begins. And it was crazy because my father is as cowboy comes. And he has this saying all the time on the farm. He's like, you've got to have, it comes from a movie. He's probably just going to cringe because I don't remember what movie it is. But it was like, you've got to have grit in your teeth and fire in your eye. And that's when school really begins. And it mirrored what he was saying. And then again, it was this moment of okay, oh my gosh, this is not going to be easy. And then I was like, you know what? That's fine. It doesn't have to be easy, but I'm going to have to do it a different way. So then how I did medical school was with this chip on my shoulder of okay, patient one, me. I'm incurable. I'm let's go. And so I had this little I had something to prove to myself because I'd given up everything. This school was supposed to be, again, my savior to teach me all the things, and then to find out that they're, again, just a stamp on my butt. But I do have something positive, to remind me on the end of this about the school system. But so I was just I've got to put that stamp on my butt, and then the medicine begins. But I didn't know really the depths of what it meant for the medicine really begins after that. And it's exactly what you're saying. You have to, until you're in it, you don't know the holes in it. So when I had a different perspective, and I would always sit at the very back of the classroom, and I just had a different experience than I think anyone going through it, because I was the project. And I came in not knowing herbal medicine. I came in not knowing about diet and nutrition. I came in not nothing. I was the black sheep of the black sheep. Like, they knew things like homeopathy. I had never heard the word homeopathy. Like, my dad at one point, he was like, so you're so you're a homeopathy. I'm like, I actually think that's a little blue bottle. So no, but I think I'm gonna learn about it. So we had no idea. Yeah. Like, there was even this moment with my mom in the car before I went to medical school, and I was like, they just sent out a newsletter, super stoked about something called kombucha. And my mom's like, should we go find it? And I'm like, yeah, I think I should be able to try this. And so literally I'm sitting in my mom's car out in front of the Sprouts or whatever. And we had this kombucha, and it had little particles in it. So obviously we shake it. And then so my first kombucha was exploded all over my mother's car. And I'm like, this is where it came from. And so I had so much, it was like, if you've ever run track, right? I was in lane 1. And I was behind, and so I was working, and I was doing functional neurology. I was learning everything, because I was like, okay, well, I'm going to need to know everything, because what I have is so severe. We can't just go in there with the basics. And so I was just learning on fire, and learning and applying, and learning and applying, and learning and applying, and learning and applying. And then just like in track, it's not until you get around that curve and get back into the straightaway, and you're like, oh, I'm in front, right? Not in a competitive way, in a wisdom way, because I was reading the textbooks differently. I was going through research differently. So I was using it how to get the grades, and I was making the grades. But then because I had this own thing of you guys are not going to make me a good doctor. And I had this revelation,
experience of what it can really look like.
Exactly. Yeah. So I was constructing this thing in real time at the same time as being a medical student. And then, I was able to actually start in the clinic sooner than most because of a, sweet friend of mine. She saw it and was like, she's good. And let her take over this patient because we've got a really busy day. And so then I got to start seeing patients before a lot of them. And it just really clicked on, even in my soul, in my spirit, of you're covered by them right now. Go. This is not the time to make it easy. So I would take all the hardest patients.
Wow.
I would take the ones nobody would want because you'd have to prep and do all this work. But I was on a mission. My mission wasn't just to get out of medical school and go join a clinic. My mission was to go find the medicine that I no longer had a map for.
Your mission was proof of concept.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I was constructing this thing and working with patients. And luckily, I do want to give credit to the few supervisors that, even though I wasn't doing it how they would do it, and I was not doing standard of care, they were like, if you can bring the research and you can bring, so I would have to do extra work to come and be like, I want to do it this way. And I had a few that were like, if you can one-on-one with me and take extra time and tell me before shift why you're going to do it this way, for me to sign off on it, I will let you. And then when I was in med school, people started getting better and better. And that's when I started really honing in on everything and being like, what works, what doesn't. And then when my body changed, it all just started coming together because I was having this lived experience and working with them and piecing all of this together simultaneously at the same time as literally just being pulled by my soul, because I was not well. I was overcoming a lot in my physical body. There were days that I just walked, because I didn't have a car at the time. I just walked to school, did school, came back, did as much as I could do, and just went to bed and started over. And so it was really a whole life transformation, and it made me get into, and so this is where I will give a nod to at least these other education systems. There's a nod to, even though they can't do it justice, there's an access point of the divine. There's an access point of the soul. There's an access point of the spirit. Because even learning homeopathy, yep. I'd be like, okay, this sounds ridiculous. No offense, I'm coming from Texas. So But
Texas Christian.
Yeah, but then I would go into just how my brain works. Like, okay, let's get down to the practicality of it. Give me not, because you would see how we were using it. I'm like, it's not working, guys. Like I was kind of like a little brutal in the like, show me the results, because I got to get out of here and I only want results, right? I want this level of like excellence in the medicine that I'm giving my life to. And so when I would just see things like diluted and, you know, it not be what it could be, I would go back to the ones who did it, not look at how we were, you know, again, that's where the school system messes it up, because it wants it to be algorithmic based, and it wants to be standard of care, and it wants it, and that's where it's like, you know, and kind of what you were saying, there's a difference between being right and being true.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I learned was that there are truths even in allopathic medicine. I learned a lot of what I learned in the model of allopathic medicine because there are truths with regards to, you can manipulate chemistry all day long, right? You can find truths in, it's everywhere. That doesn't mean the whole thing is true. Yep. Same thing with integrative medicine. There were truths in it. Functional medicine, same thing. There were truths in it. And that's why we're drawn to it. Then even in naturopathic, and then there's even a more like, you know, the natural of the naturals. There were truths in all of it. And so it's like up to us to go and be able to have the discernment and the wisdom to, again, process information and be like, okay, you know, you've got to have your own standard. And for me, it was, there should be no exceptions. So if you're going to tell me something, you're going to say this works. It's got to be, it can't be like, except if they had a B vitamin before they came in. Like, okay, then that's not a truth. It might be a right answer, right? But having a bunch of right answers doesn't get anyone well. It gets physiology and biochemistry more confused. But if your goal is wellness and resolution of symptoms and freedom, and even, you know, what I talked about all the time was I was hoping to get to a point where we weren't just working to heal the body, but we were going to start showing what the body could do. And I was just like, when do we get there? Because that doesn't even fit into any of this. Again, it's that sick care versus, you know, health care. We were studying disease, and we were managing the maintenance of keeping people okay enough to stay in their disease. And so then I had to give it all up in this, again, life transformational moment of like, I was the best of the best at manipulating chemistry. And then I was like sitting down looking at all my patient cases, and I was like, damn it. It's not true. And I was like, okay, there's truths, but it's not true. What's not true? I'm having to be the most important part of these people's lives, right? Because manipulation is the game. If I get them to change, then I become unnecessary, because you don't have to manipulate away. And so then I was like, well, that's going to change things. That makes me pretty insignificant. And so it was like this crazy moment where you know, when you're the best at manipulating, you're the most important person in that dynamic. So me and a patient, it was me. You needed me because I was the thing that was going to manipulate away anything. You could show me anything, we could get it to go away, and we could do it quick, right? But again, we got to use language carefully, because did it really go away? No, it didn't. And the one day, again, I would just like self-reflect with my patients and be like, well, then why they shouldn't be coming back to me. Like, they shouldn't be coming back to me. And that's when I had to like get to the truth of like, oof, you're just a master manipulator. You've been trained through the education system to manipulate with the best of them. And I was good. And then I was like, so what does it look like to not manipulate symptoms and to create change where physiology has to? Not, we would really like for you to do this. It has to. Just like it has to have pigmentation changes when it's exposed to light, right? It has to. And then I got to that point and I was like, patient zero again, let's rock and roll. And so I'm like opening up my cabinets at that time, full of supplements, full of tinctures, full of homeopathy, full of all these just in casers, because I could do anything. So I could preserve myself. And then I'm sitting and looking at like, okay, well, this changes things. So why are you needing all of these things? Why are your cabinets full? Oh, because I'm a doctor and I know herbs and okay. Let's go a level deeper. What are you using these in place of actually changing something? What is actually going on in your life that's creating physiology that has to be manipulated? And then I was like, let's not ask that question. And it was like my soul and spirit was like, too late. And then I was like, I get it.
Hey y'all, I'm here with Melissa Kupsch from Remedy Academy of Homeopathy. We are so stoked here at the Way Forward to be partnering with Melissa and Remedy in order to spread the message of homeopathy across the world, and also to partner on the eventual development of healing centers across the United States.
People are pretty quickly coming to realize that frequency is the future of medicine. We are witnessing the great resurgence of homeopathy right now. We're really moving away from that suppressive medical model. Whether it's for eczema, asthma, hormones, fertility, anxiety, depression, trauma, whatever it is, it all starts as energy in the person's field first. If we change our field, we can completely change our life. Our 2-year academy is open worldwide to anyone who wants to become a homeopath. We've got 5 lecturers and we currently have over 500 students enrolled, which is record numbers in our field. A career in homeopathy is amazing for anyone who wants flexibility in their work and who wants to be valuable in creating this new world. We have stay-at-home parents enrolled, we have ex-medical professionals, grandparents signed up who want to learn how to heal their grandchildren and pass on that invaluable knowledge. We even have husband and wife teams. So my husband enrolled in the course with no prior knowledge of health as a background, and he is loving it.
Kylie is also enrolled as well, so my partner is, and she's so stoked to become a homeopath and to be helping to spread this message across the world.
The thing that we hear from so many of our students is, I found my thing. Homeopathy is the key. We harness frequencies from nature and we alter the field of all creations. So if anybody wants to join us or they want to know more about it, they can visit our website.
Yeah, and all that information will be in the show notes. So if you want to learn more about Remedy Academy, also Remedy Collective, also some of the homeopathic products that they have, please just head to the show notes. All of that will be listed. Most healthcare today operates on an outdated mechanistic model, treating the body like a battlefield rather than a self-healing system. You wait months for an appointment only to receive a rush diagnosis that labels you rather than truly understanding your unique health. Even in holistic health, many practitioners rely on endless lab tests and supplement protocols, addressing symptoms instead of the root cause. And the result? Another prescription or supplement regimen that merely suppresses or masks symptoms rather than facilitating true healing, whether the imbalance was physical, emotional, energetic, or a mix of all three. And that's why Dr. Tom Cowan co-founded the New Biology Clinic, to offer something radically different. As one of the most respected natural health doctors in the world, Dr. Cowan has spent decades challenging conventional medicine and advancing a deeper understanding of human biology, water, and natural health. His work isn't just about rejecting the mainstream, it's about offering a more truthful, biologically coherent approach for healing. The New Biology Clinic recognizes that health isn't about fighting disease, it's about restoring balance. You're not a diagnosis, you're an individual with a unique story, and healing should honor that. With virtual consultations available worldwide, the clinic offers a flat-rate monthly membership that gives you direct access to practitioners who take the time to actually listen. Members also get exclusive health live streams, a resource library, and live sessions covering everything from biofield tuning and breathwork to movement and meditation, all designed to support whole body healing. And if you're not ready for a membership, you can book a one-time appointment, sign up for an enrichment-only membership for the healing modalities alone, or schedule a free connection session with one of the care team members to see how the New Biology Clinic can help in your specific situation. This isn't about keeping you dependent on doctors. It's about making you sovereign over your health. Head to newbiologyclinic.com and use code THEWAYFORWARD, and that's spelled The Way, F-O-R-W-A-R-D, for $50 off account activation, or just head to the show notes for more info. If you're a member of The Way Forward, email hello@thewayforward.com for $150 off. Your body already knows how to heal, and New Biology Clinic helps you remember.
And then I was like, I get it. And so at that point, it was like, well, my popularity is going to go way down. Because again, when you see a truth, you can't unsee it. And so then again, it was this, check for myself of like, okay, now that you know this, how are you going to proceed? Are you still going to manipulate? And they'll get better. But the things that life needs them to change, the things that the divinity in their body is begging them to look at, you're going to cover it up so that they never do. You're going to make somebody sleep at night so that they don't have to face the truths of what's going on in their bed. You're going to make somebody have energy during the day when something going on in their life is draining it from them pathologically. So are you a doctor? No. No. At best, you are a well-intentioned master manipulator of physiology. It's like, okay, cool. Do you want to keep being that? Or do you want to go and make change? Because again, I would always have to get back to like, why am I doing this? Why are we doing this? Why? Because we're giving life. We don't get these moments back. If you're listening, you don't get these moments back. If you gave a second of your life to this, you don't know that, like we don't even know that we get to leave this room. So again, it has to be that bi-directional investment of like, if I'm giving my life to it, this is not just a conversation. This is a part of my life. It's a part of your life, right? And we're choosing, instead of, being with my family, being with my boyfriend, being with my pets, being with my mother, right? Same with you. You're not with your kids right now. You're not. So we're not just giving 2 hours of our time. What's the truth of it? We're giving our life to anyone who's willing and available to listen. And in the moment that they come to this, what are they giving us? A portion of their life, probably in a moment where they're like, help, 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 right? Even if that's distract me away from this, it's still a help. And so that's what I had to start putting on my medicine and being like, oh my gosh, well, this is going to change everything. And often that phrase right there is what scares people away from doing what they have to do, what they need to do. This is going to change everything. Well, yeah, it is. Yes, it is. Because it should, because it's not a change if it doesn't. And then I had to get to that point in my life of like, well, this is going to be a mess. This is going to disrupt everything. I don't know the direction that this is going to go. And it's like, yeah, so maybe you're actually going to be in reality for the first time ever in your whole life. Instead of this perceived sense of safety, I've got it all together. I'm going to be able to control for all these factors. It's all going to go this way. And you're going to, step into something more true, step into a relationship with reality, with the divine, with truth, which is what's the truest truth. Nothing ever stays the same. Nothing ever stays the same. And you don't know why things are happening until far after, right? And even like us being here again, so many things came in, and it isn't until this point that we understand everything back there. And so the level of courage that you have to live in truth is to be able to have that phrase written on your heart and your spirit of like, everything's going to change. And then give yourself the grace of, why do we hate that word? Why do so many people, when you're like, everything's about to change, instead of being like, oh, I can't wait, we're like, please don't. Because we're already saturated in fear, right? And so when I looked at change, I was like, why are so many people not wanting to do the medicine I'm doing? It's like, Cassie, you're asking them to embrace loss. Every type of change involves loss. I don't care how beautiful it is. You get into a new beautiful relationship, you're saying goodbye to all the other ones. You're saying goodbye to any other potential partner. There's a loss in it. You
even
change
with you choosing school.
Exactly.
Like you lost all that other stuff.
You lose it, and everything that you had put into your self-image, like, because that one version of me was successful, was secure. Like the word job security had been thrown around so many times. Like you're good. Your family's going to be provided for, and to let it go completely, you're losing all of that. You're losing all of that. And you can't deny it. And you can't like delude yourself and be like, oh yeah, everything's fine. because it takes this level of like true courage of like, in a true, I wouldn't even say belief. Belief, I think, is a stepping stone to knowing, right? Belief is a good thing and work there, but when you live it, you know it. And sometimes that knowing is like that you know you're not going to get to know. And you go on a feeling, right? Because again, we all know, like, what's the most compromised part of us right now? Our minds. We know that, but then we use our minds to govern our decisions and our life and our everything. And the hardest thing too, as an intellectual person, is to be like, you're compromised. I appreciate your input. And so then you're just like, well, then what's gonna guide me? It's like, well, have you ever tapped into your heart? Have you ever loved someone in a moment where you wish you could hate them? Have you ever, like we talk, have you ever forgiven someone that in all aspects of whatever story that is, they should not be granted the grace of that? Have you ever done that? Then you've practiced what it takes to live true. You've done it. So keep building that muscle, right? In spite of, right? You are. And you have every reason not to be, but you are. And it's like, those are the moments. That's what you're gonna have to grow. That's the grit. That's the, I call it the gym with my patients. I'm like, the gym is not the gym, but the gym is gonna give you a good idea of what this is gonna be like. The gym is in real life. The gym is in the moments of like, in my typical way of being, I would run away from this moment right now. I would be mad, or I would go distract away, or I would go seek, comfort in this way, this way, this way, this way. And I'm just like, no, that's your gym. Why? Because you're uncomfortable. And so it's not like, think about, for the greatest athletes, it's not, do we put them in a position where they feel the least in their physical body? No, they go and max out discomfort like it's their job, because it is. And you get to see physical bodies doing things like, if you ever like look at extreme sports, what those people do, they have accessed a level of human physiology that if we paid attention more to the extreme sports than we are to what's happening in our hospitals, we would have a better idea of health. They are surviving things that should kill them for fun.
Yeah.
Again and again and again, right? I don't know about you, but I've been surfing and I've, done snowboarding. And
I do backcountry snowboarding.
Okay, so like in those moments where you're just like, this is extreme for me and I feel like I could die, but then you hit a flow state, no matter what, level of athletic you want to say. If you've ever touched flow state, that's what I'm trying to tell people. Like, we're not doing medicine yet. Mm-hmm. I haven't got to have a patient where I've done medicine yet. Have I worked with a lot of people healing their physical bodies? Yeah, that's not medicine, right? Or maybe it is a level of it.
Yeah.
But there's this level of being human. And like, it always like baffles me when we're just like, oh, sorry, the human part of me. I'm like, wait, so like the most badass, exceptional, magnificent thing on the planet part of you? Yeah, tell me more about that. Because we're not touching human. We are not touching human. And we see it in our research studies, we see it in extreme sports, we see it in all of these magnificent things. And instead of being like, that's human, we're saying that's rare, that's medical miracles, that's flow state, that's placebo. Mm-hmm. Placebo is every breath of your life. How are you using it? And that's where I finally got to, even in my practice of like, I had to take another break of like, it's not that I'm too hard on them. I just see them. And like, as a father, even with you, with your kids, like when you see the potential and all of your heart's like, no, it's not that supplements are bad. It's not that even period of time where you manipulate physiology to get through a rough time. It's not that. It's just, let's not call that medicine. Let's call it by what it actually is. We're going to manipulate this away until we gain some time to where you can change your life. That's medicine, right? And even if we use language more appropriately, I think it would make people understand like, oh, because we're down here like, no offense, because I was doing it too, asking petty questions to the infinite. Instead of being like, the infinite is your birthright. it's not just something annoying to control for in research studies. The placebo effect, like how many times do we have to hear that that's the biggest nuisance? And what is it? You can believe or not, and you can make it work or not. And I'm like, when will we get excited about it? And not just get excited about it, but can we start living in a way that's like, do you know how hard it is to placebo affect yourself in a way to get results? That's been my current practice.
Yeah.
I mega dosed herbs. I did all of that. But nothing has been as hard as this. But it's a given. And so like even trying to deconstruct it in my own life of like, what's getting in the way?
How confronting is that, you know?
Exactly.
It is the most confronting thing. It's so, there are so many moments for those who are listening, watching, where she's in such a flow state now that I didn't want to interrupt. I'm over there like, yes, because I share a variety, if not all of those sentiments. And for me, like, I've gotten to a point with my health, and whether this is like the foundational belief system that I'm operating from. And I actually want to comment on one thing that you said earlier, like coming from a logical, epistemological, ontological lens, what you just said about belief being a function of the mind is so perceptive and true, because the mind cannot truly know, because the only thing that you can actually determine with 100% certainty for the sake of this reality through empiricism, through logic, is that experience happens. Other than that, you cannot prove anything with the mind. So trying to find out how cause and effect works in reality in any way, shape, or form is going to ultimately lead you into the infinite regress that you come back to a foundational belief.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
The knowing that you're referring to is not a knowing of the mind.
No.
You can't know with the mind. And I challenge anyone to try that infinite regress of, okay, make a claim. How do you know that? How do you know that? How do you know that? You will ultimately refer back to your own senses in order to make sense of what you're saying. Even when it comes to logic, you believe that logic gives you the truth about objective reality.
Yeah.
So the point that I'm getting at is the knowing that you're referring to is a knowing of the heart, and for lack of a better term, the knowing of the truest essence of who you are, the truest part of you that wants so badly to express through your physiology, and it's the mind and its beliefs that are getting in the way of that. With that being said, I've gotten to a point with my own health, and I've said this a number of times on the show, that like I can trace back any time that I'm expressing symptoms, right, to a point where I didn't want to engage with some part of my mind, or a point where I was perpetually stressed out because of belief thought patterns that were up in here, and I was spending too much time up in here. Every single time. It's never because there's boogeyman particles floating about or anything like that. I mean, I've already falsified that enough on this show. It's also like, even when it comes to the conversation about 5G and things like this, like, don't get me wrong, like, there is things that are inherently life-giving and things that are inherently detrimental to life. But the biggest factor when it comes to your interfacing with either of those two categories or the spectrum in between is your perception of that which you're interacting with, your foundational belief systems associated with, and your ability to express the fullness of who you are through your physiology and how you will respond. That's why there are people who've tapped into so deeply who they are, or even like the extreme sports example you just talked about. I'm talking more on like lamas and yogis here.
Monks and
monks that have tapped into their the true essence of who they are so deeply that they could sit next to a 5G tower perpetually and probably be completely fine. Now, are we there? No. And that's where like sometimes it does take this sort of, in my perspective, I'd love to hear yours, this nuanced perspective of, like you say, manipulating physiology. I like to say orienting who you are back towards nature as best we can, so that you can get to a place where you can more adequately tap into who you truly are, a truer sense of who you are, if that's what you want to call it. But the point is that in a variety of things, I mean, I've covered the Maharishi effect, which is essentially the placebo effect on a mass scale a number of times. I've covered the placebo effect a number of times. And on the flip side of that, there's the nocebo effect and mass psychogenic illness, mass social contagion. the most important aspect of who we are, in my opinion, is is our foundational belief and our ability to pull this awareness that is always so caught up in our heads into our heart, access a fullness of what that is. And I think we're just beginning to scratch the surface on what it means to be human. That's why, I was jumping in my chair when you were like, no, this is human.
Yeah.
Like, people are like, the human side of me. What you're getting at there is like, there's people even in the New Age spiritual community like, oh, I want to transcend to 5D. I want to go beyond. I want to be more. No, it's bringing the divine, which is who we truly are, into our being now here on earth, and expressing the fullest capacity of what it means to be human. What does that look like? Look at all of the incredible examples. I mean, I've interviewed people on the show who they themselves have seen some of the most incredible things that human beings can do, that whether it's like extreme sports or metaphysical, but also I've seen it myself too. Like, this is almost like beating a dead horse or a broken record player here, but it's really that incredible. Like, so at the festival that I run, Confluence, we had a demonstration where 7 children who have activated the ability to perceive blindfolded demonstrated that for 750 people in attendance. Like, undeniable. We have it on our platform. Like, you can go watch it. And if you want to listen to the episode with Dr. Edith, I think it's episode 174. We have some of the B-roll footage from that. It's undeniable. Undeniable. And any child can learn it. That is the most amazing part. These kids are special, yes, but they're not exceptional. They're special because they're expressing just a small piece of who we truly are. Not that like the mundane things of life isn't an expression of that either. Like, life is beautiful, but who are we truly? What are we truly capable of? All of us, not just these 7 kids. What was so cool is we accidentally messed up the recording of the first demonstration, so we had to change the schedule, and then on day 4 of the event do another demonstration. And one of the kids who, Dr. Edith's daughter, Akira, who was just recently activated in blindfold vision, she's 5, I believe, did not want to do the second demonstration unless her friend could sit with her to do the demonstration. And we finally were like, okay, well, we got to get this started to keep the schedule going for the event. And this other little girl sat down next to her on, in front of all the attendees, these now 8 kids sitting there. She had previously only taken a piece of Dr. Edith's blindfold vision activation course and hadn't done like any of the exercise. So all of us are sitting like, oh, I don't know how this is going to go when we get to her to try to see if she can perceive all these things. I'm talking like kids solving Rubik's Cubes, seeing, calling colors 100% correct. My son's now training in this, so he can do it as well. It's incredible. But it gets to this girl right here, and all of us are like, oh, what, she's holding Dr. E is holding a color in front of her. Like, is she going to get it right? Is she going to get it right? She got 10 in a row. She had never done this before, but it's like, when you can, just like you said, studying professional athletes and extreme sports athletes and these other people, why are we not studying them? Why are we not studying what it means to be truly healthy to the fullest capacity instead of just obsessing over disease and what's fearful and making us sick? Likewise, like, when you spend some time around or you study those things, this is a perfect micro example of what occurs. She's around people who are on the path to remembering who they are, and then she instantaneously has this ability again. Like, yeah, I don't know where to go from here.
No, I have a couple of things.
Yeah, please.
So what I'm hearing in that is, like, if we could redefine what learning is, you're touching something so profound there, even with those children. Learning is not gathering intellectual accumulation in the mind. Learning is an incorporation of the human that's learning. So learning is accessing what you have, not gathering something you don't. So what is being accessed in those children? So their learning is demonstrated through what they're doing, not sitting down and interviewing them and being like, okay, let's chat. They'd be like, I don't have time, give me a popsicle. So if we redefined learning and really put the pressure to be like, we need to learn some stuff. Learning is, again, accessing what you already have. We don't have to, like, think about it. You don't gather anything, even energy. What did they say? It's neither created nor destroyed. You're not gathering your health. You're not gathering You're accessing what you've already been given. And there's like a grace to that. And these children are echoing that back to us, like, can y'all pay attention? Adults, can you pay attention before you wash this out of me? You're accessing what I have. It came built in. You didn't put something new in me. You're accessing what I have. What you're not doing is you're just not limiting my capacity to access it. That's different. Because what most of us have gone through, right? My parents weren't taught that. Your parents weren't taught that. We weren't taught that. I wasn't taught this. That's why it's so hard for us to even digest, like the fact that woo-woo comes up with placebo effect, I find fantastically entertaining. I'm like, that's the problem. It's perfect. They'll tell you. It's not that they're not telling you how powerful you are. They're outright showing you in every gold standard research, they're showing you. But they're controlling for it like it's a nuisance instead of being like, the reason it's a nuisance, like what is the most, like if you're going up against an opponent and you want to win, you remove the one that's going to beat you 10 out of 10 times. That's what they're doing with the placebo effect. But we're still just being like, oh, that's cool. That's cool. Why? Because living that, actually learning that, what would be required for us to learn that? Access that power without being in a research study. Like, let's take on the challenge. I know that that's kind of one thing that I've been doing. I'm like, when I was looking into it, I'm like, but I'm not susceptible to being dazzled by me. And I'm like, okay, well then figure out how to dazzle yourself. Maybe that's some learning you need to do. Why aren't we dazzled by ourselves? Why do we need a white coat, an expert, a celebrity to be wowed into accessing a belief that can tap into our capacity? Why? Be dazzled by yourself. Because again, that's part of this whole thing, like to be like, you're a divine creation. Those children, divine, perfect creations. Me? Probably, maybe in another lifetime, right? And we call that humility. Again, the way we pair words becomes very beneficial for those that are, capitalizing off of that. So if you say this is your greatest power, let's call it a placebo effect. So then you start thinking an effect is just something and you associate that with research. So then it's just this annoying thing in research. Instead of being like, wait, hold on. I'm walking around with that ability every breath of my life. That's something very different. Call it something else. The placebo effect is every day of your life. Think about the implications. And even as somebody in this world, I know how hard it is to wake up every single day and even know this and even want to push myself in this way. Like my training now is something that like you couldn't really look on the outside looking in and be like, she's trying to access something. But the language is very important. It's not like I'm trying to go find it. It's in there. So either what has gotten in the way, or are you even reaching for it? Because sometimes that's what I started seeing with a lot of people. And like, I'm telling you that there's gold right here, and you won't even reach out your hand. There's no attempt to be like, okay, so what if I could change, like, and I even tried to put it on like aesthetics. And I'd be like, okay, well, what if you knew that you could change your skin? You could change your body and be more quote unquote beautiful. Would that inspire you enough to try to access this component of you? Or what would it take, right? What would it take to get us to the point of like, I'm ready, but it's exactly kind of what we talked about in the beginning. It changes everything. And that truth is so uncomfortable to face, even like with myself. I'm like, what all would I have to give up? Cassie, you'd have to give up everything. Because then if you acknowledge, and that's again why my practice is on hold, if you acknowledge this, doctor is irrelevant. Talking biochemistry and physiology, laughable. So who are you now? And instead of like the invitation that I actually felt in my heart was everything now. I'm no longer a performance of importance. I'm realizing that true oneness is like, well, now it seems so obvious. I don't even have to like positivity my way there. But then every morning is a waking up and a choosing. You choose the change, and it is not comfortable. You have to be willing to lose everything. And you have to be willing to lose everything in this day and age and let everybody look on and think whatever they want to think. And you have to have the strength, an unbelievable strength to see the truth in medicine, see the truth in humanity, see the truth, and carry that simultaneously while you're living in awe, wonder, joy, trying to be a demonstration, like being like, okay, what if the only way we can really convey this is to be it so fully? It becomes undeniable. Well, then now that's my work, right? And then I won't have to convince you with my words, right? Because we also know frequency. We walk in a room, like you don't have, the people that change a room don't ever have to announce that they've arrived. Not because they're famous. Most people that actually change rooms are anonymous, and you'll never know why. And there's so many times now, even like as a practice in my life of like, when I go to a coffee shop, I'm available. I'm bringing all of me. If I'm there, I'm there. So if there's a moment where life wants to use me as a vessel to give true medicine to somebody over a cup of coffee on my break, I'm there. And then again, what does that require? The energy required to have that fullness of presence. You have to be willing to manage your energy. So then when I'm not there, I'm not there. I'm not going to be there in my mind. I'm not going to be there in my fear. I'm not going to be there in even my hope. So where I am, because that's where I get to be. And again, it's not this like, this esoteric, fluffy language. I'm talking like get to the actual practical science of it. Science is not bad, it's just asking questions. We just want a full answer. We want a complete answer everything in my questions, instead of being like, part of the beauty of science, I think, is it's this, can you ask questions? And what I had to learn doing the medicine that it ultimately got to was, you have to be willing to receive a true answer. And that is really hard for a lot of us, when the true answer is, it's you, right? Because then we're like, but no, because of this and this and this and this. And okay, those are right answers, right? And right answers have a perspective and a premise. And a true answer is if you get to that global, universal angle, a truth is a truth. And sometimes we, even like in relationship, I talk a lot and it tends to be like with women more, men kind of cater their answers to what they think the women can handle, like when they love them. And what really, the invitation that I give a lot of people is, one, as a woman, if you're going to ask a question, you have grown in you the strength to handle a truth. And then you provide a space for the man that you're in conversation with to be honest and have the courage to handle whatever it feels like for you to experience a truth. Mm. And if humanity, I say that in that big way, big, if humanity could behave this way, can you imagine how quickly we would heal? Instead of catering to the places where like, I see where you're hurt, so out of my goodness, I'm going to mistruth it a little, or I'm going to soften it a little. But instead to be like, I love you so much. I'm going to tell you the brutal truth right now. And what I've actually started trying to change is like, brutal truth is not brutal. It just hits. It's beautiful because it's impactful and you can actually do something with it. If you're not given the truth, it's like, you're just in confusion. The second a truth lands, you feel it. Sometimes it's a gut punch. But then what? You do something with it. And if we could start behaving, and I take it on, all of these things I speak to, I take it on as a personal thing in my relationships. And if you've ever had to switch the part of your personality from people pleaser, I see everybody's, because I've been that too. I see everyone's pain points. I see where their bodies are talking. I see. So then my responsibility is, can you be honest and truthful seeing it. Not, do you have to not see it and then you can be truthful because you don't have to deal with what it feels like to know somebody's about to hurt. No, I need to be strong enough to feel what it feels like for somebody to hurt in my presence and to love them enough to say, guess what? I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving. And I'm not going to make you do anything, but I'm going to be here as you figure out your next steps. And then love would take on something totally different. Love is not the sentimental, romantic. Love is, I want you to be the best you, right? And I want to be the best me. And like, even if you know, I feel so blessed to have a family like I have. And like, even like with my sisters and my brother, like, we're all so different. But when we are exactly who we are, and like usually in our family circles, we're more us, right? When we're the biggest of us, we help each other more, right? We also annoy each other more, right? And we frustrate our parents more, but it's where, you know, we get in these critical moments. And it's that, you know, again, we'll go back to the extreme athlete. We perform at our peak. We bring our peak. And again, if we think again, like, how would you live a life to serve the greatest? You would have to be your greatest on all fronts. You know, that's why every time my mom calls and she's like, you know, what are you doing? I'm like, working on myself. And she's like, sweetie, where? And I'm like, I saw something get hit in me because of a relationship, because of something that happened. And instead of saying, I need to fix it like it's a flaw, I now look at it of like, okay, so imagine on your physical body, just with muscles, you notice that like your bicep was a little bit different than everything else. You just want to bring balance to it. And so if we started looking at ourselves too, instead of being like, you know, I notice this about you. And instead of being like, oh, that must mean I'm wrong and I need to compensate in this way, in this way, in this way, or anesthetize or run away in these ways. What if I'm like, stand in the fire, feel what it feels, handle how it feels, you know, look at it in the eyes and be like, so what am I going to do with it? You can either keep it and know that that's always going to exist and always going to be, you know, when we talk biochemistry, it's always going to be a contributor to that underlying chemistry that you're quote unquote fighting. You're not fighting it, you're accumulating it. Very different. So you're always going to accumulate that chemistry and you learn how to live with it. Or you know, I kind of have the personality, I'm going to rage against it. Why? This is my one time to be me. Right? And you know, just for full transparency, you know, I've had a moment in my life where I was just going to end it. Like I let myself get to that point where I was just like, And the thing that brought me to this, like my wake up thing, was that I had grapes down in the kitchen and I loved grapes. And what if I never get to be a human again? And what if I never got to taste a grape again? And then this little human, you know, thing as silly and as irrelevant as eating a grape was enough to be like, hey, wake up. Wake up. And then what did I do? I ate that grape like it was the last grape of my life. And then what happened? I accidentally wanted to eat a pizza. Because like, okay, so if I don't get to be a human again, maybe a pizza, I would probably miss a pizza. And then what happens? I go and have that pizza by myself and I have a conversation like the last conversation I may ever have. I hug somebody as if they're the last time. And then I call my mom and then by the end of the day, I am so filled up that I'm like, I'm almost ashamed that I was about to do that. But that's life. That's human. That's these moments where all of life is like, hey, if you could just be here for a second, let me show you a few things. And that's what our bodies are saying too, just like you were saying with your beautiful language of like, life wants us to be the truest of us. And so what happens in your body when you're going against that? There's repercussions. And the beautiful thing about the body that I just felt absolutely in love with, and why I call it like the purest example of unconditional love, is what your body does is it whispers to you. And it's like, hey, that doesn't feel right. And then you're like, well, I'm going to do it anyways. And it's like, okay, I got you. And it's like, that doesn't feel right. And you're like, well, I'm going to do it anyways. It's like, okay, I got you. And then you do that so many times, and then it's I got you turns into maybe a tumor, an autoimmune condition, you know, something more severe. And we look at it and like, you're terrible, and I got, this piece of shit body, and we start condemning the thing. And even while you're talking to it like that, what's it doing? I got you. I got you. And you're being like, I hate you. I would want every other body except for you. You're this, and like, put that on a lover. That's what finally made me fall in love and like really understand the body, was because I love relationships and I love love. And I was like, oh my gosh. It's not just what I'm doing to my body. It's literally what I'm doing to, like, if you believe in it, to God, to his face, being like, oh yeah, perfect creations. This piece of art, like, imagine going to like Monet or Picasso being like, yeah, you're great and all, but this one, awful, completely awful. And him being like, that's one of my most prized ones. That's one of my, like, or even like thinking, even if you talk, I talk to my mom and sister about parenthood a lot. And, one time my sister she was about to have her second child, and she called me and she was like so upset. And she was like, I'm just so worried. And I was like, what? And she was like, I just don't know that I can love my second child as much as I love the first one. And like, there's this funny part of me because I'm the second child. And I was like, I mean, so if you want to go into that a little bit, I'm really worried about why you're sad. But if you could expand on what is that, we should call mom for sure. We should call her and check. And, it was like this funny conversation, because then I literally call my mom, like, Mom, hot seat. Do you love me less than JC? Did you run out of love? Does the love get diluted? And she's like, no, impossible. And then after talking to my sister, after her second child was born, she's like, I didn't know I had the capacity to have more. And this is exactly what the body, what life, what all of it is like, I'm pushing you to not take away, just like having another kid doesn't take away the love. I'm showing you that it gives you more. I'm making you uncomfortable right now to show you that it's not even being small, it's just not being you. And you is the greatest thing. And it's like, we talk self-love, but self-love even dilutes what we're trying to put words to here. It's literally, because, I grew up in the Christian faith and scripture, and like basically had the Bible memorized. And it wasn't until like I stepped away from organized religion and stepped away from everything and really just like re-grounded myself of like, but wait, what? And like that, there's like that scripture, there's no flaw in you. And like and then it was like this like part of me, like, who are you to look at that and look at the flaw? Why not go look at there's something freaking phenomenal there for you. And you don't have the grace to look at what gives grace, to look for it. And then you're gonna be like, I haven't been given enough. You've been given everything. It's like literally being like, if you only knew what you had. And like, that was another thing that came in the moment of like, when I was going to take my own life, was like, the craziest thing is if in this moment, like if you look back and look at the life that you were given, and even if you want to take it further and be like the potentials of everything. And, it kind of happened simultaneously at the same time as my grandfather passed away. And I was lucky enough to have one last Christmas with him. And it was this cool moment. There's so many kids, so many nieces and nephews in my family. And this room was full and chaotic. And my granddad was sitting with his wife, my grandmother, on this little couch. And we all kind of knew it was probably going to be the last. And I was just watching him from the side. And I'm like, I wonder if he knew that this whole room would disappear if he didn't exist. I wonder if he knew in that moment, and like watching him and only getting to exist because that man existed. Like, does he know? And just like, I will never forget that image, because again, it was like Christmas and chaos and kids and screaming and crying. But all of these little lives, all of these big, adult lives were only there. Like, if you take him out, think about everyone like just, and then you have an empty room with him and my grandmother and my dad. And then it's not until you put it in perspective of like, don't minimize it down to you're important and you're a gift and that you're God's creation or part of the universe or whatever you want. That's minimizing it. It literally is minimizing it. And so actually to get outside of our egos, to get outside of ourselves is not to see ourselves as less. It's to see ourselves as more. And like, it wasn't until then that it wasn't like, we're having, again, petty conversations with the infinite. But the grace and like what I think love actually is this looking down, being like, no, you're not right. But I love you anyways. You haven't figured it out yet. But you don't have to. But what if we could literally step outside ourselves, become human? Human's not a little thing. Human's not a petty thing. If you have to have so much to like poison and manipulate and mind control, is it because they're the weakest or the strongest? And then once you realize that, you're just like, so what are you gonna do with it? How many times do we have to tell you you have it all before you start to play with some of it? And just like those kids that you got to see at the table, you have that, I have that. Yeah. Have we accessed it? No. Does it come built in? Yes. And then my thing, the more people I met, and one of the greatest gifts that I will say I ever got from medicine was when you have truthful conversations with people. Like it's not that I made them tell the truth. I just encouraged it because it was the only way we could do what we were doing. And it's when people start showing you those closets that like they don't want you to even know are in the house. Every little dark, I don't even like calling it dark. It wasn't dark. Every place that you don't want somebody to enter, the second you allow yourself to enter that space and be okay with whatever you're going to find and not anticipate to find a trauma, not anticipate to find this demon lurking in a corner, just be okay with whatever it is. Because that's true curiosity. I don't know you if I come in thinking anything about you. To know you, I would have to know that I know nothing about you. Same thing. We don't know ourselves. We often ask for our partners, our family, to like know what we need. And every single time in an encounter, with like a patient, I'd be like, well, what do you need? And they'd be like, I don't. So how would he know? How would she know? You don't know. So again, how would you get to know yourself today? Quit pretending like you know who you are. If you're not seeing through walls, if you're not levitating, you don't know who you are. So don't pretend like you do. Just say, I don't know yet. I'm finding out. And then the finding out is what? I'm going to play. I'm going to live. I'm going to show up. Like, if you've ever had a moment where you're about to create the transition of your life before it's time, you realize coming back how fun walking down the street is, how enjoyable. The other thing, another story just for perspective that I always want to put in this place too is I worked in the hospital setting a lot, and one thing I did start seeing was when someone was on their way out, and the family thought that the person was going to die. Specifically, the one story I'm talking about was like this Italian family, and they were very like loud and combative and all of these things. Well, when their mother was about to transition, when you'd go in the room, everyone was kind and everyone was polite and everyone was just very kosher. And then this woman took a turn. And I really think that in her little spicy spirit, she's like, I'm not done yet. Anyways, and she started getting better and better and better and better. And so instead of going down, she went up. And she was about to be, leaving the hospital. And I remember like walking in the room and smiling because they were being awful to each other and, tearing each other down and screaming at each other. And I was like, isn't this kind of freaking beautiful? That they were all perfect with each other, all kind and only saying the good things when they thought she was going to go. And then how did I know the life was back in the room? Because life was back in the room. They were ridiculous. They were mean. They were saying stuff and like, "Oh, she just now got better." And then they would just like cut up and make a joke about it. But again, that will forever be in my spirit of like, what if it's not that we get more perfect, but we get more okay with being everything? Because what is perfect? Perfect is all of it. It's all of it. And I don't know about you, but like my best relationships are the ones where I am ridiculous, where I'm annoying, where I'm fantastic, where I'm insightful, where I'm jealous, where I'm insecure, where I'm like messy, and then some days put together, and I've got to be all of it.
Amen.
But we don't let ourselves do that. And then we compensate in all these other ways that create chemistry, that creates pathology or symptoms. Again, if I could be queen for the day, I would just change language completely and do a better job of it. But again, when you actually see the truth of it, if you're going in the direction of fear, you're further away from the truth, I promise you, from my own research and my own like very practical, rational, let's get down to the bare bones, like actual facts, I need them. And the further I got into that, the more it was like, oh, weird. Like I truly think like God or the divine or whatever you want to call it, the universe, like literally is like just loving on us hard and smiling and being like, they're so far away, but look how cute they are.
Yeah.
And look how they're still kind of connecting, like doing a group project, trying to figure it out. And look how they're finding little bits and pieces of themselves. And almost like, I think like that cosmic thing is like, whatever that is up there being like, when they do find out, what do you think they would do with it? And that's always like, okay, so quit pretending in this smallness. Because it's not even like, oh, positivity or positive. No, I'm saying the most practical thing, if, information comes from wherever, right? But according to all the information I've dug through in my time on this planet, the most practical thing is to like 1,000x every amazing thing that you've ever heard about a human, and that's close to what you're sitting on. And like again, do a little thought project. Every new advancement in technology, how can it already talk to your body? How can it have an effect in your body? Because we taught the body? No, because the body's like, okay, yeah, I can respond to this. I can also respond to that. I can already have a conversation with that. What's more impressive? Like imagine like we had somebody come in the room and they could have a conversation about all of it. They could have a conversation in every language that existed. Who would be the most impressive? But we look at the body and that's literally what the body's doing. It's having a conversation with everything that our intellect is creating and like just unbelievable to our minds. And the body's like, yeah, I know. I'm doing that. I can have that conversation. And it's not, let me teach you how to interface and then have an effect. How is your body having an effect from 5G? It's equipped to have the conversation. Equipped. You have it. Just like those kids at the table. You didn't go put something in them. They access something they have. And again, another, funny way to see it, because I do it all the time, is like the hardest keys to find are the ones that are in your pocket. You're never going to look there till the very, very end, until you're just completely like, oh, there they are, right? It's the last place you're going to look. And so I just, these conversations make you go out into space, but then like all truths, they bring it back down to like this, like, it's so obvious. But what do we both know? What they teach you, or even what they tell me all the time. Like, the obvious isn't sexy, and nobody will ever reach for it. And then, but every time I'm told something like that, I'm like, you don't know everybody. Enough. A few. We know what frequency does, right? It doesn't have to be everybody. but the ones looking for it, the ones available for it, the ones willing to be, it's not just willing to think differently. It's, you got to be willing to have everything, you know, and taken away is hard language, but you got to be willing to let everything change. You got to be willing to let go of everything change about who you thought you were. Like for me, that's the, you know, my friends sometimes are just like, every time I talk to you, you're a different human being. I'm like, but so are you. I just have the conversation with that part of me. And I've slowly started to develop the courage to be like, this is my business. With my soul, with my heart, with my, and like if every single day, how can I, is the better, and again, language, right? Is the truer version of me, like how would she do it? To be like, again, like if you imagined a king giving you the greatest gift, how would you be like, not even repay, like how do I just show you how thankful I am? You want nothing from me, right? And one thing that I fell in love with studying bacteria when I was studying like infectious disease and all that stuff, I fell in love with,
quotes.
Yeah, I fell in love with life all over again, because bacteria, they're so brilliant. And why are they so quote unquote hard to beat? The second they learn something that could promote the survival of them, there's an instantaneous share of information. Not come to me, buy it, then I give it, right? It's the second they find something that saved their life in that instant, instantaneous transfer of information. And again, I've had this conversation and everyone's like, okay, well, we can't do that. You have to pay bills and you have to, and I'm like, until we start doing it. The second we lived like that, it changes everything. When I'm saying change, I'm saying change. It's so far outside of what we can conceptualize at this time, because we think that instead of, like we're taking a step instead of a quantum leap. And the change that we talk about is, no, it's a leap. And what's the hardest part too, like, as that moment where something leaves and you have that quote unquote empty space. Okay, well, are you strong? Who have you been all the way up until this point? Are you strong enough to hold your own, knowing that life will come and fill it? But do you have the capacity to hold in that waiting period? And that's often what happens with change, right? Even when, you know, cholesterol leaves your skin to that slot, it could be like an eternity. When is it going to come and give me more so I can make more hormones and vitamin D? And there's a moment where nothing is there, right? Who are we in that moment? That's when you're tested, right? It's not when everything is all laid out and, you know, everyone's pointing the direction and you have that certainty of, like, the certainty has to be a breathing, not a looking. The certainty is, I'm here. And if you've ever done anything with athletics or even just taking care of your body, right, physically, you know that, like, your preparation happens before the moment you need it. And we often condemn the body again because of our lack of preparation, because it can only access what you give it. So a body that, you know, maintains itself and, you know, follows the rules, like I like to say, on this physical cause and effect plane, has more available to be accessed.
When you say follow the rules, you're talking about, like, for those who are like diet, basically all the things we already talked about, like diet
so
for
like
a little bit,
light, and like just how the body,
circadian rhythm,
those
health,
things,
all the
like the body has that, it does it.
Yeah.
Right. I always kind of like simplify it all the way down to, like, if we had like 3 shots of tequila, it's gonna do what tequila does.
Yep.
So when I say rules, I'm just saying it's just, that's what happens. When you're out in direct sunlight, that's what happens. When you're out in direct sunlight, you know, with glasses, or it's what happens. It's not a curse, and it's not, you know, I still think there's always mystery. Yeah. We don't know near as much as we think we do. But again, we do have some pretty practical, I call it the difference between the practical and poetic, but knowing it always merges. Like, there's a practicality to living. And you know that if you don't use your physical body, if you don't use senses, it's not that they disappear, they atrophy. So with all things, like even if we were to put that on even what the children are demonstrating, as adults, we've just atrophied the capacity. It's not gone. Right. And so with all things, that's how, I have that athlete mentality is really such a gift if you can understand what it actually is teaching you. Because like I tell people all the time, like if you believe in working out, that if you do consistent, intentional action over time, like you're not going to be buff the next day, but if you persist, are you going to have results? Yeah. And they're exponential at some point, right? Okay, well then I really encourage you to believe in healing, because it's even more phenomenal than that. It works even when you're not. Right? So imagine building a muscle even when you're not trying to. That's what healing is. But if we could just simplify it down, minimize it a little bit, and put it on the level of actual muscle growth, well, are you dedicated to it? Like in being like, oh, well, I didn't do light, I didn't do nutrition, I didn't do these things this way. So of course, right? That's the level of like, I even got more playful in the way I do things. Like, of course, well, I did that, right? Of course it's going to take time to heal. I did that, right? And not in a, again, judgmental condemnation, like I have to do everything perfect way. It's just like, again, put it on birth control. We follow the rules perfectly when it comes to stuff like that. We got to apply it on life. So if you missed birth control for 2 days and you got pregnant, you wouldn't be like, birth control is flawed. No, you'd be like, oops, yep. I did that. That's my fault.
How can you show up and be consistent while also remaining in play?
The best question ever. And the way you figure it out is you live it. But the way that I have lived it, and the best way I can put words to it, is you put priority where priority is. And every single day is a gauging of, like, you have your non-negotiables. And like, the more you're tapped into who you are as a person, you understand what that's like. Like, no matter what room you put me in, I'm going to be who I am. Morals, values, standards. So you've got to live that on this very practical way. Like, there's things that, like, and I know you've also got to know your Achilles heel. And that's how, like, I always just call it like removing variables. So we know that you have to breathe. We know you have to have light. We know, and so just control for what you can control for when you can, when it's available. And then past that, it's not worth your time. If you're stressing out because you don't have the purest water available to you, you stressing out is causing more damage than just not having the purest water. So again, max out where you can max out, remove the variables that you can remove. And what's the cool part of the equation? The equation is dynamic. That's the cool thing about variables. That's why some people don't even know anything about water. But they've got some other variables so on point, it's compensating for the rest of that equation of being a human. And so the living of it is like, every time I work with somebody, I would have to get to know them. Because what you end up finding out is those variables have those exponents. So to you, like, relationship might be something that carries an X of 10, not just an X of 1. So, but then for somebody else, he may not care about relationships at all. It may be purpose for him. And so if I prescribe for him to focus on his relationships and every single day make sure he has these things, that's not going to be medicine.
That's protocol.
Doesn't matter.
It's protocols, right?
And so you've got it. That's where it's like, you have to know yourself. And then when you get into the lifestyle medicine component of it, because that's the cool thing about all the information we have. Isn't it cool how much we've learned about the sun? Not that we needed to know it. It's kind of like life being like, obviously. Right? But still, cool. Now we know all this. Are you using it? Have you applied it to your body? Because like for me, I know where my Achilles heels are. And so I baby those, right? There's never a day that I'm going to miss out on sunlight if I have anything to do with it. I will jump through hoops. Then I get to be more lax on the food if I'm in a situation where it's like, this is the best we have.
Also begs the question, like, what nourishment even is, and that's a whole separate conversation.
Exactly, and what you have available, and where are you at? And, I have that conversation all the time with regards to nutrition, because everyone thinks that they know things too, and then when you get into the world of, like, even the certifications and the labeling of organic and all of that there too, I'm like, you honestly, I promise you, never really know. You could have a little thing of non-organic blueberries that came from the sweetest farm. He just couldn't pay the price to put a label on it. It got mixed in with all the non-organics, and you're freaking out, making it more poisonous, and it probably was the healthiest option available. Right? So again, you're making a contribution to everything that you do. Everything that you do. So I just try to simplify it all the way down. Like, everything that I know, I'm going to do the best that I can with what I've got. And if the best I can one day is not my typical sun routine because I'm flying and I'm doing all of these things, then I'm not going to be poison. Can I love being in an airport? How can I? Instead of the light, the air, no, I was that version once. It did not feel good. It did not feel good. And so now it's like, how can I do it the best? And then when you have that playful spirit, it's very playful. Like, imagine, different people have different personalities, but some people can come into a completely empty room and have like give them 30 minutes and $100. And you're like, well, how did you do this? And then, so if you have that with life of like, what can I do with what I've got? Instead of that mentality of I'm always going to need more to be okay, or I have to have it these ways. And then what I even do that's even a level more of like that quantum play is, okay, well, life puts you in a position right now. Your water's not what you want. Like, I was in a hospital in Croatia, the time I needed all the healthiest things to help out my body to get out of there, right? But I didn't. I had like processed meat, like a tube of pink yogurt and a piece of white bread, water coming from who knows where. And so in those moments, you're like, okay, doctor, because everyone's a doctor, with what you've been given, with what you know about how the body works, show me what you can do. And then depending on the person, depending on the preparation they've had before that, if you've never worked on your mind and you put yourself in a pro game of using your mind, don't be hard on yourself that you couldn't play. But that's why I encourage you, when you're not in time of crises, you've got to, in athletics, it's always like play up. Because like whenever you had a summer, my dad would always, like in summer league basketball,
you hooped growing up?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we would play teams and we would just get demolished. And by the end of the summer, you're like, I don't think I should play ever. Probably ever. Basically, this is a trauma. And then you'd get into the actual season and you're winning games. And you're like, and like a coach knows why they do that. So just put coach bigger. And again, does the coach push his best players the least? He's so hard on them to where they almost want to quit and be like, you're a jerk. Also, I hate you. And I don't even want to do this anymore. And it's not until you realize it's because he sees the potential in you. Do you want to level up or do you not? Right? And to me, once I started putting that on life of like, if my life has been, this quote unquote hard, is it because there's nothing for me to contribute? Or if I look at it in a completely different way, and after having lots of conversations with people, what if life is always just like, this is what you're given? What are you going to do with it? And then that makes living day to day easy. So if you have these little golden nuggets of food matters, water matters, light matters, relationships matter, all of these things matter. And my way of doing it is just like, how do I do the best with what I've got? And where, like the triage mindset that you learn in the hospital, what needs my attention? And then you've got to get really good at being like, and what does not? And when you master those things, you get in the flow of it. And then how do you tell an athlete to have the best game of his life? It happens. But what was required before? So much discomfort. But what I always tell myself and what I always tell my patients is get uncomfortable in a direction that changes your life. You're uncomfortable anyways. I don't know about you, but even now at this point in my life, I wake up and it's like, oh, have you thought about being sad about this? Here you go. Have you thought about being worried about this? Here you go. Have you thought about wondering if this maybe could happen maybe on Friday? Here you go. And you're like, how am I this far in? But then it's like, okay, but the fact that you're asking that question is showing you that you need the practice. because you should wake up and be like, no, doing this. And then you're, on that pro level. So to me, it's like practice. And how do you practice? Like, again, this is echoed in what every teaching ever, like the journey. And when I realized that with healing, like everyone's waiting till the day their skin looks a certain way. Everyone's waiting but they don't realize that how they're going about getting there is what's going to change their skin. And then again, it's echoing back what every great teacher's ever said. It's not the destination. It's today. This is the day. And with what you've got, what are you going to do with it? Because like, again, the way that I look at people is like, I always see them and I'm like, oh my gosh, you could do this and this and this, and you're so good at this, and this is effortless for you, and you're so beautiful at this and this and this and this. Like, accentuate your positives. And like, I'm just like, if they only, like, if I could somehow reflect back to them what I see. Like, if I could put up the holographic image and be like, it's not that the only way I can see it is because it is you. And like, I don't know how else to explain it. I can't imagine something that's not you, right? Because it requires the looking to see. So whatever I'm seeing it's you. And if you realized it, like, that was the thing too, because like we can have the conversation too, like make it super simple, super simple. Like, what if you were pessimistic and at the end of all of this, you were right? What would that life feel like? What if you were optimistic and at the end of it, you were wrong? What would that life feel like? What if you were pessimistic and you were wrong? What would that life feel like? And then what if you were optimistic? Ridiculously, obnoxiously optimistic, and you were right. Which version do you want to be? And so every time I'm in a rut, that's what I put to myself. I'm like, okay, Miss Brain, Miss Intellect, let's make it super simple. Where an 8-year-old could answer this question. Because guess what? You don't know. And you won't know until you know. And the last thing that I want to do is look back and be like, I had all of that. I could have at least reached for all of that. And not talking earthly success, that right. Weird condition. I'm talking like I could have experienced love and bliss and connection and all of these things. I was walking around in that. Yeah, but you just never pressed that button. Why? Life convinced you were a go-kart and you just could not realize that you were a Ferrari. And you thought you were doing go-kart wrong the whole time. So you just kept studying go-kart stuff. And I was sitting up here being like, sweetie, you're a Ferrari. You need to learn how to go fast. You need to learn about different fuel. You're not a go-kart. And so at the end of the day, it's like, we know nothing. I know nothing. Right? I think we give access to what does know. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. And the purity and the clarity of our vessel allows more of that to enter in. Yes. Which is another reason, like, why are we healing? We got to get past, I just don't want to not feel bad or feel good. No, what are we?
That's a deeper why.
What is it? Yeah. And even like, why are we here? Because until that really has this like understanding, and like to me, the answer should be playful. Because I want to taste and I want to touch and I want to feel and I want to love. And like, imagine like if you were given this, like, this is Earth and this is being a human, and down there you can taste foods and you can have children and you like go down there, but you only stayed in a little apartment because somebody told you that mold happens and that 5G happens and then all of these things, and then you leave and you're like, you were literally at the coolest place to be a physical body and you hid. And you're like, dang it. The turtle analogy. You turtled. Why did you turtle? Mm-hmm. Get out there. And it's like, but things could, yeah. But guess what? Again, this was the biggest revelation that I came across in medicine when I went all the way down the death question. Because medicine, let's be real, wouldn't exist if we weren't afraid of death. Mm-hmm. So I had to go there. And when I went down that path, the truth that I came to, because it blew my mind when I like thought back into the hospital. And there were two really profound moments again, before I had this awareness. And there was a man who was like 98. He might have been in his hundreds. I can't remember exactly, but 98. He had like tumors everywhere. Like just everywhere. And he passed. And of course we say it, like went to go tell his family, and they were a Spanish speaking only family. So we had to have a translator, and we had to tell the family that it was his wife, who was in her 90s as well, and then his adult children, that he passed and he died of cancer. And so the of cancer was a very important thing to me. And the translator told the family, and the wife just burst out laughing. And I was like, oh, like trauma, or
she didn't like him. So yeah,
like something. Yeah. And then she said something, and then all of the kids started laughing. And so the attending physician asked, he was like, what did she say? And the translator was like, no. And he's like, what did she say? And we're all standing there like, and he's like, she said y'all are idiots and you have no idea. And I remember being like, oh God, okay. And then I thought about it, and I thought about it, and I thought about it. And I thought about it, and it wasn't until I went through all of this medicine. And then it came back up in my mind, and I was like, when I was going down this question path, and I got to this point, and I was like, she was right. That man didn't die of cancer. He, whatever it is, died. Mm-hmm. Of what? We don't know. And her point was, no, he lived. He lived for 98 years. You ridiculous people. He lived. Look, this is his son. This is his daughter. This is his grandson. Like, he lived. And you're going to collapse all of this down to this thing and call it this, like, call it cancer? And she just laughed, and they left. And then there was this other moment paired with this that gets me to the conclusion I'm about to get to. We had a young woman pass, and she was perfection. Her labs were perfect. Her imaging was perfect. She was beautiful. She was young. And it was one of those cause of death unknown, which I didn't know. That was the most frustrating thing at the time, was the truest thing that model ever said. Mm-hmm. Cause of death unknown. Exactly. Because then when we were looking at all these, like trying to find like something on the toxicology reports, and it was so heart-wrenching for us to give the information, we don't know. I was like, isn't that the most ironic thing? That was the most honest we had been the whole time. But then that one sat with me, because then I was like, but we perfect labs to keep people healthy so they don't die. Is that true? Do perfect labs mean somebody's not going to die? And I was like, oh no, stop asking questions. Cassie, stop asking questions. I was like, no. Does somebody with perfect labs, do they get to become immortal? No. Okay, question number 2. Brilliant doctor. Somebody with a perfect body, do they not die? Has anybody ever died with a perfect body? Yes. So medicine, we perfect the body through all of these, some kind of general to very horrific interventions, to perfect labs, to perfect the body, to prevent death. But people that have perfect labs and perfect bodies can die. So what's true? And I had to sit with that. And again, it took doctor and said, with all due respect, a grain of rice maybe. And so then I had to come to the conclusion, it has nothing to do with any of that. And the point of all of this is the living. So how are you going to do it? Because the truth in this moment right here, no matter who's listening, watching, you and I right here, I'm just as close to death as you are. You're just as close to death as my little niece. she's just as close to death to somebody that's 108 years old. And that's uncomfortable. But that's the truth. Perfect labs, imperfect labs, tumors, no tumors. We are eye to eye. And that's where it led me. And then again, what does that do with medicine? What does that do with doctors? And then when you realize that somebody can live a life and change their physiology, or somebody can, quote unquote, fight, cut, burn. And again, what happens simultaneously with this information? If we're being honest, it happened in me too. This information, when you acknowledge, when you look at a truth, it instantaneously starts dissolving illusions. So what are the illusions that we might not want to give up in this conversation? Medicine can save me if something happens. Somebody can save me if something happens. Maybe. But maybe there's something bigger that's harder for us to acknowledge, right? And again, I had this experience one other time with a boyfriend I was dating, was in a motorcycle accident, and another young man was in a motorcycle accident the same night. Both traumatic. One lived, one didn't. Same team, same floor, same lights. It was your perfect case study. The young man that died actually had less severe injuries. Why? The perfect research study. Why? And when can we get to a point of not just admitting, but living? I don't know. I don't know. And all of me wants to rage against it. Right? All of me. Why? Because that is that's living insecurity. What are you doing by not looking at the truth? You're living a synthetic insecurity. You've compounded something that if we could just be like, okay, the bare bones of this, the truth, as far as I've gotten myself, is this. This, and we can live in a way to enhance life as best we can. And the living of life informs your constitution, informs your physiology. What more beautiful script could have been given? Even with all the well, that's terrifying. But it should also be liberating, because that's what truth does. Truth, what? Sets you free. So the second you're instead of being I'm not afraid of bears and I'm going to spend my whole life avoiding anything that has to do with bears and just acting like bears don't exist, the second you are or you're going to just acknowledge that you're afraid of bears. What are we going to do about it? It's not until we can lock eyes with that fear that we can actually start doing something that's going to do something. Until then, we're just frantic. So what level of uncomfortable are we going to be? Right? I'd rather be uncomfortable in a truthful way, because I can do something with that, right? And again, even when you go into spirituality, what does spirituality beg of us? Quit pretending. And if you're my thing is, if I'm gonna pretend with everything we know, or we think we know with quantum physics and everything, I'm gonna pretend the best. Why? Because again, if this game ends and I look back and they're like, you were pessimistic and wrong, sweetie, I would have been like, dang it.
Right.
Because either way, optimistic and wrong. Oh, so I was just blissful? Yeah. But you were wrong. Okay.
Still had an awesome time.
Cool.
Yeah.
I loved hard. I lived hard. I impacted, or I thought I was impacting the best that I could. There were more days of fullness and connection, and okay, but you were wrong. The world was actually toxic and it was eating you up, and I didn't know. Again, just always go back to that question, because it's okay, you can do with it whatever you can live whichever version you want.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever seen the documentary Searching for Sugar Man.
Huh.
You have to watch it.
Okay.
Because it puts like a visual kind of on this like, dual realities or alternative universes, literally. But it's about a musician, and his name is Rodriguez, and his music is phenomenal, like phenomenal. But basically his art, he created an album, and his art lived a life he didn't get to live. He became famous in South Africa while working as a blue-collar worker in Detroit, Michigan. He had no idea.
Wow.
He had no idea. And so his music was creating fame and all of this stuff. And he, like, while he was alive. And it wasn't until these super fans tracked him down to try to find the mystery of this man that they all had fallen in love with his art, that they located him. And then he had this amazing, like, it literally just blew my mind wide open, this amazing experience of being who he could have been. It was his music.
Wow.
And I watched that. I don't watch much, but that was a documentary I watched that forever has changed me. Because, like, again, there's so much that you could go into even in that story of, it's the creating. And, like, the genius of his creation did what it was going to do. And where do we get creation? Right? And just that whole, like, what if you knew what you had, how would you live? Would you change it today, knowing that you're going to lose something? You always have to lose something to gain something. To heal your skin, you have to lose skin. So how are you going to go about it? And how do we live? And then that makes, hopefully, the living of every single day, instead of I have to. Make it that playful thing of, with everything that I've been given in this day, even if it's just with my focus, and we say just, right? Like, that's not the most powerful thing.
Literally the most powerful thing.
How do I accumulate, and not even call it medicine, like, give it back to the greatness that it comes from? How do I accumulate wonder and love and, like, find evidence of how we're connected, right? And, even what brought us here too in our own personal lives, like how life, there's an intelligence to it. And, like, even, like, I've had these cool synchronicities even with, like, relationships and, my current relationship right now, just how life was like, even the first time we had an opportunity to meet, I was just like, no. And then life was like, okay, one more time, until it's just like, oh my gosh, okay. And what if life has an intelligence, but because we focus on time, we focus on, and it's like, again, we can think about it like with farming and with produce or with baking a cake or even women getting ready, right? What would we love to hear? Like, take your time. We don't have to go yet. Just take your time. Women everywhere are like, why does that feel so good?
Shout out to Kylie.
Yeah. So, like, because imagine, like, even just like something as simple as that. Like, what if you were telling your partner, like, I'm not ready yet? And be like, okay, no, we're fine. Like, what if life is like knowing that, because it's never separate from us, and like, she's not ready yet. Not yet. He's not ready yet. Not yet. They need to go through these things, and then they will be ready. And then it even makes you look at all of those quote unquote bad things, because I don't know about you, but everybody I've talked to that has something so profound to give, they've gone through something really, really hard that transitioned them there. And
Likewise,
I was like, when are we going to look at that as, like, when did grace come into your life?
I mean, I've said this on so many episodes, and I genuinely mean this. And maybe in the moment, there are times where I struggle to acknowledge that when I'm going through something challenging. But I have this shirt that I wear sometimes. Should have worn it today. It says "Grateful for it all."
Yeah.
And because I can look back on every hard point in my life, no matter how challenging, and I'm genuinely grateful for every piece of it.
Yeah.
Every piece of it.
Yeah. And I had a real life experience getting to visualize this. So with that same boyfriend from college that was in the motorcycle accident, he lost all of his memory. And he survived, and they were having to teach him back his life. So as a grown man, he had to learn how to be in a body again, which was something I've never experienced. And that was profound on its own. Like a grown man with these big arms and big hands, learning how to, like, what are these and how do I use it? How do I go to the restroom? And so that process blew my mind. And then the process that really humbled me in the most profound way was I loved this man. And so even when I said that, it was like, I love him. That's why I'm here. And then when they were reteaching him his life, all of his ex-girlfriends chose to come because the news was covering it. And so all of his ex-girlfriends had to come, and like he didn't know. He was relearning everything. And I was standing on the outside looking in, being like, wait, I'm not okay with this, I don't think. And then I had to pause and be like, this is his life. You can't come in and be like, only I exist. Only girl, only woman you've ever known right here. Because then even what I would do is, thinking about it, it collapses all of the things he had to go through, all of the heartbreaks, all of the beautiful moments that you're like, oh, I don't even want to think about that. All of those things were woven into the version of that man that you met, that you fell in love with. If you take one of those women out, you take out something in him. And I was like, I don't want to know that. Because, again, not the little me, but that part of me that's been trained to look at life in a certain way was like, no, you can't use your pet name with him. You can't kiss him. Like, this is not okay. But again, when you're on the outside looking in and be like, okay, Cassie, so you're going to handpick the pieces of your life, of his life, not yours, his, that you're okay with being there. You take one of them out. You take out a piece of him that you loved. And then it made me look back even on who I was. And like because like I wouldn't be in this conversation with you had I not had all of that go on in me. I wouldn't have had, I mean, maybe I'd have been cool and funny, but I wouldn't have accessed this. There would have been no reason to. I would have been an MD, prescribing and surgeries, and I knew where I was going. Mm-hmm. But because of things not going how I thought they would go, not going how I wanted them to go, that's the hardest one. Now I'm to a place where I feel like I actually have something to contribute. Mm. I became the doctor I never could have been had I gone down my path. I wouldn't even say doctor anymore. Like it's so like we use it because I'm the human that I should have been, or not should have even. I'm the human that was in me. And that's what was required to show me, to chip away, to say, it's not just important for you to know who you are, but it's so important that you know who you're not. And only life will provide you with the opportunities to get to see that. Because hiding away, I hid away for a portion of my life. I hid away. When you're engaged in life, the learning, the transformation is so much greater. And you have, the cool thing is when you're not hiding away to heal, when you're healing in the light, meaning in front of people, around people, not just handpicking the parts that seem okay. When you heal in the light, the coolest part that I've got to experience as a, former hider was when I let that part of my own hurts, my own, weaknesses and my wounds and my scars, when I let somebody see them, what generally happens? They come in it's not that they walk for you, but if you ever get weak, they kind of prop you up and no. I see more in you. Do not drop here. And that's part of human, right? Clarissa Pinkola Estes has a beautiful quote, my one strong leg for your weak one, my weak arm for your strong one, or something like that. Mm-hmm. That's what it is to be human, because you're never going to be strong all the time. You're never, there's a beauty to the dance of it. And if you think you're here to dance alone, you're going to realize really quickly you can't. And isolating is not strength. Performing is not strength. What's strength? This is a place in me that hurts, and I'm risking this moment in your presence that you could hit it. That's stronger than oh no, nothing in me hurts. Everything's fine. And that was a learning for me too. And that was part of like, you know, watching all of these things that I've got to see in my life and being like, okay, so Cassie, you're saying right now you wouldn't take away any part of that man's life because it's what made him him. Can you reflect that back to you and look at your life and say there's nothing I would take away? And then even as what I've experienced with my sister and my parents, because the parents' love is something unbelievable. Mm-hmm. And for a parent to be like, I want to take away all the hurt and pain and fear and anything that could ever go wrong, I would say, don't do it. My mom would have taken away all of that in a heartbeat for me. But if she would have, if she could have, if life would have let her, I couldn't be this. And so it's also this offering of like, you know, to put us in our place in the most beautiful way. Like put me in my, like if we had that conversation again with the infinite or with God, and just say it like with the purity, like put me in my place in every sense of that. Where do I belong? Where do you want me planted? And again, get away from this conversation of ego and not put me, but like put me in my place. Show me where I'm at in the constellation of this. And then your only responsibility from what I've seen is now be it. Be it. You've been put in your place. That's the greatest gift. Sometimes it feels like getting knocked down, beat up, chewed up, spit out. But again, what if that's you being put in your place? And if you were like, okay, here I am. And then what am I going to do with where I've been planted? How am I going to grow? How am I going to, you know, be the roots that talk to other roots? And like, that's the other thing. Like, there's so much more than a conversation that ever goes on. Just like with trees. What you see, it's beautiful. What's going on underneath, that had to be established before the trees could even be made visible, right? And the communication and the conversation. So no, we're living that same way. Mm-hmm. And then how do we fall in love with living instead of being like, once this heals, I'm going to, or once my finances get to this point, or once my business is going this way, or once my, what if we try here today? Because then what do we know? The vacation effect, or whatever you want to call it scientifically, all of the physical manifestations of stress and all of those things resolve. Mm. Objective. Like you can measure it in blood markers when you are different for a week.
Countless examples of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I brought up on the show one where there's a few different ones. One where elderly patients, I think at a like elderly home, mm-hmm. Were told to imagine themselves and really take on the characteristics of when they were young again. And all of their biomarkers reflected that change relative to the group who was acting as the control group that didn't have any change. And then there's another example of maids at a hotel mm-hmm. who were told, hey, what you're doing actually counts as physical activity. Yeah. This is literally like working out versus another set of maids in that same hotel was not told that. Mm-hmm. And again, those who were told and then took on that foundational belief, going back to what you're saying, being optimistic, being perpetually optimistic. There's so much more to be said there. Again, going back to what I said around belief and what one can actually empirically and rationally, logically, epistemologically prove with 100% certainty. You can't prove anything with 100% certainty because, again, that infinite regress that I brought earlier, which would then it should lead one to ask, okay, if I can't prove anything with 100% certainty, that means I'm operating on foundational beliefs. Wouldn't that mean the best thing that I can do is inquire on those beliefs that I've adopted or that have been impressed upon me and try to dissolve them and really start to orient my life on a day-to-day basis towards adopting that which would lead me to express more optimism authentically. Not a forced optimism, an authentic one.
And how does one go about dissolving, right? The dissolving, the dissolution that he's talking about there, you have to live, right? Because where do we get those foundational beliefs? Learned, lived experiences, right? Often from childhood. You had to live it. You had to experience it. And what's happening a lot with people now is they're trying to dissolve and replace or rewrite, but they're missing the critical point, which is it's got to be experienced. It's got to be an actual lived, like the body has to be brought into the conversation to be brought into the conversation. What does that feel like? So instead of operating from, a place of fear, I had a conversation a couple weeks ago about this too. The patients that I had that you could call a spontaneous healing, there's been a handful of them. And I would take notes on all of them because I was like, what did we do? And how do we do this again? Because they were fundamentally changed. I never saw him again. I actually saw one at our speaking event that we did back in.
Oh, wow.
She was there and it stuck, it held. And it was such a beautiful moment. The one thing that was constant in all of my notes with them, the first thing they said, their whole physical appearance changes. They become youthful, they become innocent, like doe eyes, like innocence. And the first thing that all of them said was, now what? And my only answer that I could give them, honestly, was exactly. Nothing's the same. You're no longer living to heal something. You're no longer dictating your choices on what will get you the best sleep, and you're free. We don't know what it feels like to be free. So in order to establish and replace and dissolve those previous beliefs of if you're not doing this and this and this, and you're not aware of all this, and you're not afraid of all of this, and you're not going to do all these right things to heal your body, the dissolution of that is the living of, I'm whole and well and free. What am I going to do with my life? What am I going to do with my time? Because now I don't have to babysit a body. I know I'm walking with the most powerful thing. That's a complete identity shift. So those foundational beliefs are what feed into identity. And so when you're saying dissolve, he's not talking a little thing. When you're dissolving, I think about if somebody took the foundation while we were talking right here of this building, would we be unaffected? Absolutely not.
No.
Right? Everything in this room would no longer exist as it previously did. That's what we're talking about. So this language is beautiful. To live it, it is a different way of living. You completely reallocate your resources. What matters has totally changed from I'm talking identity change. Because when that foundation changes, it has to shake the whole structure. And if your whole structure has not been shaken, then maybe you had a gentle initiation, or maybe like the ground is coming, right? But for me, in my experience, when I changed, it was not a little thing. It wasn't like a gentle thing. It was beautiful. It was filled with grace. I gained so much wisdom, but it was a violent thing. It was everything that you've felt safe with. Think about foundation. It's what you go back to. It's what you put your feet on. If somebody were to take the foundation and you can't put your feet on anything, how does that change your identity? Well, gravity no longer, if gravity doesn't apply, you're gonna have to figure out how to move using some other force that has nothing to do with gravity when your whole life was based on movement with the foundation of gravity. That's what we're talking about. And that's the level of, when you say now what in a life, which is the truest thing you can say to a life, now what? I don't know what's coming. But all I know is I'm going to bring the best of me. And I'm going to live in a way where the best of me is promoted for the next day, if I get it. But it will not be lost on me this day. Today's not a training day for tomorrow, right? And when you live that, you have to rewire your thinking, because you have to be able to be in this life of planning. Like, even to be here, we have to schedule, we have to like pretend that we know what the future holds, right? And even for this conversation, the future had so many things in between getting us to have this conversation. And to be able to pivot with life and play pretend, we know, oh, in 2 years we'll have a meeting on this day. Okay, that's cute. Yeah, sure. But be able to simultaneously hold both of those things, because that's the other hard part. It's so much easier just to be like, let's just play in this model, because it's so hard to know this. Like, that's usually what happens when you start liberating yourself and liberating your mind. It's like, well, right now I'm exhausted. Well, that's probably because you're still in both worlds. It's very tiring. So you've got to merge more into the truth. And then what does that naturally do? It dissolves the illusions. And then you see the illusions and you participate where you have to participate, or you navigate on how not to participate, but it's no longer pulling from your energy of like, you know, when you don't know where you're at, when you're lost, like, you're not thinking about dinner and a comfy bed, right? You're like, I got to figure out where am I? And I feel like that's what I've seen with a lot of people in this quest for truth, and like, you know, make it make sense. None of this is making sense. Is there's this initiation process of, I am lost. And I'm always just like, now that I know, I'm like, good. But don't you dare stop. I call it, like, we joke around, you know, just even with healing the body, it's like the tunnel of suck. So imagine being lost as you're taking steps into this tunnel. And if you stop, the tunnel doesn't get shorter. If you go back, the tunnel doesn't disappear. So what are you going to do? How do you persist? Is always like, when I'm in a time of transition, a time of like heavy, hard, like, I don't want to do this again. It's like, well, you have to. So how are you going to do it? How beautifully, how playfully can you go through this tunnel if you know that you have to go through the tunnel? There's no way out. And the second you stop, you're not shrinking the tunnel. The second you turn back, you're not going to, like, you're still going to have to come back to this point. Like, put it on a workout when you want to put it on healing. If you go to the gym every single day for 3 months, to get to, you know, how you want to feel strength-wise, and then you stop, and then you stop for like 3 years, do you get to pick up right where you left off? No. That's how the body works in healing. So usually when it gets really super murky is when people are like, okay, I'm done. I'm going all the way back. And I'm like, don't. You already built the muscles. Life is asking you to build a muscle you didn't know you needed. Right? And so usually the body responds so much quicker than our mind, our identity, our beliefs. It's like if our mind could catch up to our bodies, like, because you can see in children, right? They heal. Why do we say children heal so much quicker than, you're like, well, they have less toxicity, blood, volume, blood. Nah. Yes, and what? They change. They're less resistant to change. They're less locked in, and they're more like, okay, and why? What's the sweetest part of that? Their trust is in mom and dad. If mom and dad seem confident and they seem like they trust and their nervous systems feel safe to me, not what are they saying? How do they feel? That's why I had to stop working with kids, because the parents are the environment. The parents are the nervous system. And the kids are just like our bodies. They're the truth. Lie detector tests, if you will. But I just think it's truth, because I don't think we mean to deceive sometimes. We're like, no, I'm okay. No, you're not. Your kid knows. Your dog knows. The cat down the street knows. What do they know that you don't? You're pretending like you're okay, right? And so again, it's one of those things where when you think your life is your medicine, you have to go all the way down to that quantum level of, what a smile can cover or what causes a smile. You have two totally different chemistries. But it's a smile. It doesn't matter in this world. It has maybe, with some of the research we've done with muscle contraction and stuff, you have a little bit of an input if you fake a smile. But you're not going to battle the chemistry of grief, shame, despair with a smile. Not to say it doesn't matter at all, but what would actually get you to the result quicker? Not faking the smile, but wearing the scorn maybe, and letting it be seen by somebody, and somebody being like, what's going on with you? And being like, I'm not okay. That actually gets us closer to healing than, oh no, I'm fine. Everything's fine. Again, it's that position I was put in medicine. I can manipulate away your fatigue. I can manipulate away your acne. I can manipulate away the fact that you're not falling asleep at night. That's not changing anything. It might actually prolong the change. And so again, like, it all mirrors, the holographic universe that we're in. It all mirrors each other. Medicine mirrors relationship, mirrors self, mirrors. And that's the beauty of it. And that's why, like, you can have, like, people from totally different backgrounds that are just asking questions and wanting true answers that kind of are like, right answers are fun to talk about. Give me the true ones. Be like, but you got to be strong enough to handle the truth. I don't care. Give it to me. And the people that live that way, what often happens is what? We find ourselves in this center clearing of like, how did you get here? Yeah. How did you get here? Right? You can talk to an engineer and be like, you got here how? Through math? And my brain's like, tipping is a lot sometimes, math. And you got to these truths through math? You got here through geometry? You got here through earth elements? You got here through song? And that's that's human, right? And so the singer needs to sing, needs to go through the experience of singing, needs to go through the pain of everything to bring these truths to a way of being like, okay, if I say it this way and you can say it this way, and then she says it this way, and then we come to this thing of like, how do we get us out of the stuckness that we are? Well, that's why you need people. Because like, perspective is a beautiful thing when used appropriately, right? And we're perspectives. So it can't be like, well, this is my version of truth. No, we've got to be devoted to the truth, which is, I understand I'm a perspective. This is, think about a team. Again, like sports. The best team is the one that like, I'm bringing my best. I'm making my workout harder in the gym for me and for the team. And then that plays with a unified mind, right? Because they've spent the time, because they even have like one of the coolest things I learned was like with regards to like combat sports and like boxing and those type of sports is that those individuals are more emotionally regulated than even your average practitioner. And I was like, that's a profound stat. Why?
That's actually why I wanted to put my son in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is because of the emotional and mental mastery.
And why is it their body has to be in the conversation of the emotional mastery? You can't master your emotions and not have your body in a life. You can't hide away in a room and say you're healing. You're not. You're hiding your emotions. You're not healing them. Why? Because emotions don't come out. Like some will, but that's your like... Some of the stuff you're trying to get away from is just what's going on in the mind, creating emotions that might not even really truly be here. And so mastery really is living. And like it becomes fun. Like if you like the sport, you don't hate practice, right? Practice might push you. But if you love the sport, you love the sport. Like when you talk to those athletes that love what they do, like, I don't know, or even talking to an artist that loves what they do and they know all the little like details of it. And if you do this, I'm just in awe in those conversations because I'm just like, I can't see it, but I feel it, but it's just fascinating. And again, this is human. This is how we do it. Because again, if we moved away from trying to heal, what could we be doing? The world, it's one of those things where I say, like, you know, the rules of life, like your skin can't not have pigmentation changes when exposed to natural light. If we're different, the world can't not change, right? So if we're trying to change, we might need to change the foundation of how we're going about it a little bit, right? Those quantum leaps, like even nature. Water goes the easiest path. It doesn't rage against the boulders. It can move a boulder if it has to. So what in human is natural, right? We talk about natural stuff all the time, but I'm like, how natural are we? Because when we're natural, what are we? The most powerful, like nature. Isn't it funny how we're like, oh, natural medicine is like adjunctive care or like complementary. I'm like, it's how it's all created. Mm-hmm. And so again, it has to take us so far away from the source and from ourselves and from what we are to even be remotely interesting to us. And then we get obsessed about it until it just doesn't have the answers. And then it quickly, rapidly, profoundly leads us back to, like, we're all created perfectly. Like a prayer that my father prayed over that boyfriend of mine was nothing missing, nothing broken. And it just resonated with me throughout life of like, no, that's exactly it. Because my father wasn't praying over a body that didn't have any broken bones, right? He was praying over a body that had a piece of the skull taken out, brain swelling, broken bones so bad that they couldn't set him. They didn't think he'd survive it. And he was praying the words, nothing missing, nothing broken, over that, right? And what if that's the truth of all of this? Like, what if we lived that way? We would be the thing that's like so annoying to everything going on right now. We can't not change. Especially if we want to tie on, we're the 99 against what, the 1? So what are we going to do with that? When do we enter the conversation? Mind is one thing. Collective consciousness is one thing. Contribute. But part of the contribution is we bring the body into the conversation. We're on a very physical plane here. Don't try to escape it. Like, changing is how we inhabit where we're at, right? Like, you can even, I don't know if you have any friends that are like so uniquely themselves, and like, or even if you know your siblings really well and you can see like a bag and you don't see anybody in the room, but you see a bag and you're like, oh, I know Bailey's here. How do you know? You can't see her. Oh, because that is her. How do we live that way? Not with stuff, with presence, where it's not even like, it would be so cool if we got to a point where we didn't have to speak our message. It's like, why is that area changing? Why is that area changing? Why is that, like, blow away what we think we know about blue zones. Talk about zones that, like, again, when we realize we're the pros, not we were the high school team playing the pros. Like, when are the pros going to realize that they're the pro team? That they could demolish, right? Because we even see it in history and we're like, why didn't they rise up? Why didn't they? Well, they rose up in maybe the way that wasn't really rising up. Like, how could we again, move in a way that doesn't, it's not just futility. Because I don't know about you, but like when I got into the world of truth, there was so much of my time spent trying to, because I just didn't know. Again, part of that is, where are you at? Do you figure out where you're at? You got to go through that lost time, figure out where you're at, be connected with people that also know where they're at, ground yourself, and then, you know, let the dust settle and be like, what do we really do? And because my thing, even in medicine, if it's working, it's going to work. And the second, even as a physician, that I was like, why is it not working? Right? And then I would have more appropriate questions. Because if you're working with something that works, you don't start questioning that. You start being like, why is it not? Like if a patient wanted to get tan and I gave them like, okay, we got to do this and this and this and do these little things to keep your skin super healthy and then have exposure this amount of time. If they showed up to me and there was no pigmentation changes, I wouldn't be like, we need to go investigate the sun. We need to go, this person's genetically flawed. That wouldn't be my first question. My first question is like, are you doing it? And sometimes we don't even get down to the most, like, because that's what I learned in medicine. If we ask those questions and we actually do it, you find that what the most profound things are those basic things. They are the free things, right? And so again, it's like, if we could just simplify it down, ask the most profound question, and then when we get an answer, have the courage to take the most appropriate action. A lot of the messes get cleaned up quicker than we could if we intellectualized it all and had this super strategized, and again, it's here, it's there. It's whoever's listening, right where you're at. Be a freaking, revolution right where you're at. And either way, it's either preparing you to go join the team you were meant to be on to actually play a game, or you're going to change it so much where you're at, we might not need to have that team. Either way, the players are ready, right? Because can you imagine, like even for like UFC, right? I find it fascinating sometimes, like those fighters get a call, be like, okay, this guy's out. Can you fight in 3 months or a month even, or tomorrow? I want to be like, if that were me, or I just want to live life in a way that's like, if you called me tomorrow, I'm not going to not take my spot. I'm going to take my spot and know that you got the best version of me. Good luck, whoever has to go against me. Like if we lived that way, how would we live? How would you, and like, there would be a playful nature to the preparation. But you would bring all of you to every single day being like, the second I'm called, even like for my loved ones or anytime my close friends need big medicine and we get ourselves into an urgent situation, I'm always like, put me in. But it's this big scary word, put me in. Can you say that in your life? Put me in. To motherhood, fatherhood, sisterhood, brotherhood, leadership. Like, have you done the work to have this true, and not out of like, put me in so I can be seen, right? Because what do we know about most leaders and even like alpha males and wolf packs is at the back, right? And think about that in life. Who's or what is really at our back?
What if nature's intelligence could directly influence your physiology, helping to regulate your nervous system, sharpen your intuition, and shift your emotional state in a measurable way? For over 25 years, LOTUSWEI has been pioneering the use of flower essences, liquid infusions that capture the bioenergetic imprint of plants. Unlike essential oils, these remedies work on a vibrational level, interacting with your body's meridians and electrical system to promote clarity, resilience, and balance. Katie Hess, who I featured on episode 74 of the Way Forward podcast, has spent decades studying the effects of over 300 rare and powerful flowers, hand collecting them from across the world. The result? A line of elixirs, mists, and anointing oils, and even some chocolate, designed to shift your state of mind and body, not through placebo, but through the subtle yet profound ways plant frequencies interact with human biology. I think flower essences are severely overlooked in the wellness space because it really is an incredible way to package up the wisdom and the innate intelligence of nature and deliver it to your body. And it brings your body back into coherence because it's tuning you on an energetic level like an instrument. So if you want to find which flower essences are right for you, you can take the flower quiz so you can see which ones match your current energetic state. As a listener of The Way Forward, you get an exclusive discount. Just use code ALEC10 for 10% off your first order. Or if you're the Way Forward member, get 20% off plus ongoing savings, and just reach out to us if you're a member and we'll get you your membership discount. Just go to LOTUSWEI.com/Alec or just head to the show notes so you can experience one of nature's most powerful energetic remedies today. There is so much power, and again, we're just scratching the surface. That's the why.
Yeah.
So like, now that we know about the shit, why perpetually focus on like why do that, especially when you realize the power of this, and more importantly this, when this is synced together. Like, why would you fucking, and it's not that you like turn the blind eye to it and love and light it away. Likewise, on the individual level, you don't like stuff down that shit that's coming up. You face it full on, but knowing that this is the most powerful thing in the process of it. Like that's like my audience.
That's really cool.
It's special.
So have they given feedback? Because like this was one thing that even with my patients doing the work and the ones getting the huge results, like unbelievable stuff. It was just like, why do we require so much convincing? Yeah. Like when we feel that of a truth, why isn't it, let's go?
Yeah, I think for people, like, I mean, everyone's constituted differently. I won't say it's so easy. Yeah, it is in some cases. It's easy to get sucked back into conditioning. And when you haven't made a big enough change in your life to where like your whole environment is now completely different, it's easy to get sucked right back into that same conditioning you're in before. You know what I mean? And it's not to say that you can't fundamentally change from within that and be that nodal point of coherence, if you want to call it that, amongst a sea of people who are disconnected and incoherent. But it's like there are so few people, even in the natural health space, that think like this. You know what I mean? So it's like having that reminder, that nudge, just like that coach who, you know, when you fall off track and knows you're fucking so good, is the one to remind you there, like, no, like, I see you. I see what you can do. Or like, fuck, this is another cool example from the blindfold vision thing. So Matthias, he's been doing it for 5 years. He's like...
It's a kid?
Yes, he's 10. He's one that we have footage of 2 kids sitting in the front of the stage playing a game of chess blindfolded. And he's one of those kids. Like, he's incredible at it. Like, when I first saw him do it, he's sitting playing a game on his mom's phone. And I went and grabbed one of my friends. This is a year and a half ago in Mexico when I first met him and his mom. I've had her on my podcast too. And I went to grab my other friend. I was like, dude, you got to come fucking see this. And he was like, what? I'm like, dude, it was at this event in Acapulco. I know we've been here for a week. This will be the most important thing you've seen at this event, without question. He's like, what? I'm like, I'm not going to tell you. We get there. We walk into the room, and Matthias is on blindfolded playing a game on his mom's phone. We walk in 30 feet away over here, and it's like a room full of people. And Matthias goes, you're new. You're big. Could tell that he was walking in. But this is what's wild about belief, and it'll make sense of my point that I brought up earlier. So just before the blindfold vision demonstration, let me back up. With this ability, and I think this is a perfect allegory for like all abilities, honestly, is that Dr. Edith, like my son just went through the class, when she's teaching it, she says, hey, we want to be very mindful of sharing this with family members because it's okay to have open-minded, skeptical people around you. But if you have closed-minded, skeptical people around you, it can really impact the kids. This was in our like very last call with the parents. Like, it's really important that like we're not sharing this with other people. So at the event that I put on Confluence, Matthias, before he got on stage, his mom runs up to me and she's like, Alec, we have a huge issue. And then she proceeds to explain that Matthias was playing pool with his brother, like with a blindfold on. We have some footage of that too. And I guess like a man jokingly shamed him, but like jokingly, like trying to poke fun, like, oh, you're cheating. It's not real. It's not real. And he literally was not able to do it for a little bit because he took on that belief so powerfully that he couldn't do it. But then the moment he sat down with the other kids, he was able to do it again. But it's just like, it illustrates such an important point.
So it wasn't until he was reintroduced to the kids that were also able and had that's powerful.
Yeah, and that's my point. It's like this podcast or like a message like this acts as a remembrance, like when we get off track, when
you forget temporarily.
When you forget, and like it's gonna fucking happen. Like, but it's also useful. It's a part of this life. It's like how plants grow in a spiral. You revisit things, and it gets easier and easier as you revisit over and over again. As long as you're willing to go there. Yeah. If you're not willing to go there, the plant's gonna fucking die. Yeah. That's the whole point. As long as you're willing to go there and go along with life, you'll revisit, and it'll get easier and easier and easier as you go. But it's like, a part of this experience is that's okay.
Well, there's something to say too, because there's something created in that kid. And I had a patient that had an experience kind of like this, but there's something created in that kid that's now going to start flexing a muscle that's going to doubt the doubt. Mm-hmm. Because of, again, he needed that table of kids to remind him who he was. Yep. He needed a parent that was like, no. But in that moment, he also gained. Yep. Because now he's like, next time he's in a position where an adult's like, yeah, but you can't, no matter what, he's going to doubt the doubt, even for a second. Totally. And so maybe that's even why we're all going through, and even like what brought us all here is, I've been through doubt. Like you get to a point where you're just like, it'd be so much easier just to be a regular, like, like whatever we want to call it, quote unquote regular, right?
Normie, quote normie, yeah.
But maybe what you're providing for people too is like, to doubt the doubt. Yeah. Like in those moments that you're just like, I know, but I don't know, but we're wired to doubt, but maybe we need those muscles of, like when you are doubting, go back to go back to your crew. Yeah. And they're not going to do it for you there, because again, he had to access that, like just even the psychology of what that kid had to access. All in that little story is just, if you could study everything that he accomplished there. So he was able to lose contact and regain contact, which is what we're trying to do here in life. Like even when we talk about placebo, I haven't mastered it yet. I can't make this work like wine. Why not? Right? So that's exactly what us as adults, like we've had more time in between the loss of contact, or maybe we've never really had contact. Mm-hmm. And so we're trying to, my boyfriend, he's from Mexico, and he actually said something profound to me the other day, because what I talk about, and I've never really had community. Like I have my family, but past that it's been me, just like doing this. And he was like, you miss something you've never had. And he's hasn't been able to go back to Mexico for a little while, and he was like, and I miss something I've had. We're missing the same thing. And like it like broke me open, because I was like, nobody's ever said it more perfectly. It's like, but like maybe in a soul sense, our souls have been there and like know that and remember that. But exactly what you're doing, like you need your people to go back and be like, you know, what you're missing is the remembering of that it's not gone.
I feel like a common theme in this conversation is that we've been conditioned, or maybe it's an inherent part of this realm, like a part of this experience, because but for lack of a better term, or for the sake of this question, we've been conditioned to not trust ourselves, so we outsource to others. And that's not to say that others don't provide useful and helpful information, but like this goes back to the joke that I made earlier. I won't say in every single sense, there's like certain things that I believe there's that word though, I believe that human beings need, right? Like there's certain key things that human beings need. Like human beings need community to varying degrees. Some might need it more than others, but human beings need community. Human beings need water. Human beings need a certain amount of things, right? But with that being said, there's no one size fits all protocol for anyone, like anyone, period. No way. Yeah. No way, because we're all unique. And a perfect analogy for that is like, okay, you have soil in Mexico, for example, versus another set of soil that's in, I don't know, Wisconsin, right? And yes, there are certain like requirements for soil universally, but the protocol with like that soil being sick in Wisconsin versus this soil being sick in Mexico, you're not going to do the same things. Every farmer knows that. Like it depends on the context of that environment, of what that soil requires based on that location, based on its needs, based on what occurred to it. Yeah. It's the same thing with a human being. But protocols, I mean, going back to the like outsourcing piece, I think that we've been so conditioned not to trust ourselves that's why we outsource, but it's inevitably, no matter what, going to be the wrong path, because the ultimate path of healing is coming back to full trust, or closer to full trust of ourselves. Would you agree with that?
Yes. And I think, or how I've started to see it when I've looked at this, because it's such a huge component of even choice and choosing. You're not really free if you're not trusting yourself enough to choose, right? You're not really choosing, because so many other factors are informing that decision or that choice. But one thing that I started kind of like, protocols, again, are just doing their best to eliminate as many variables as they can, right? Or to manipulate in the strongest way possible, right? So a person eating only fruit will minimize a lot of effects, but that doesn't mean that, you know, being fruitarian is the cure for all bodies, is basically what you're saying. Yep. And so when you're looking in...
Or detox protocols, like literally anything.
Exactly, parasites and all this stuff. So when you're looking at everything, that's why I like to just do it like kind of mathematically in a way of removing variables. Because just like you're saying, if we took away sleep from a person, they would have a, you know, psychiatric diagnosis within 2 weeks, maybe even 3 days, right? So again, they have to have sleep. All humans have to have sleep. All humans have to, so those fundamental basic tenets of life have to be there. And how I tell my patients all the time is like, if you have to breathe today, those other things apply. But how often are we choosing to brush our teeth instead of go get morning light? And we say we're choosing our health? No. We've still prioritized something, because brushing your teeth isn't going to save your life, right? All the hormonal and immunological changes of light is going to do far more than brushing your teeth, right? Again, not to say brushing your teeth is bad, but again, we've got to prioritize what actually facilitates true physiological change. And then when, you know, you enter the conversation, when you truly look at human physiology, which is the other thing you're pointing towards, is you get to a point, and this is what I saw even with my patients, like there are some people where you just handle those very physical things, the practical things, everything's resolved. And there are some that you can perfect the practical, and the quote unquote pathology persists. So do those people just need to eat candy and not care about anything? No. That's the like a psychological, you know, loophole. I don't want to do this anyways. What you actually find is those people need to actually incorporate those in a truer way, which is how are they applying those? Are they doing it out of fear? And that's where we have to enter this conversation of everything else that's available to a human being. Why are you doing it? Because every single bite you take, you also are creating a chemistry that is just solely you. So put that on everything. And that's why I say everything matters. And then there's these other things that are, you know, society, community, that are even further outside of like, because like you and I can control the funny word, but access some sort of control through like what we eat, what we choose. But when it's dealing with other humans, this is something outside of our grasp, it seems like. So a lot of people are trying to heal in isolation. And we all know, like, there's research on that. There's like so much information. That's not how humans are created. We are not created to survive in isolation.
No.
And so again,
maybe for a time being, like going to do like an initiatory experience or something like that, but absolutely not.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then when you put this into the conversation, that's where you've got to gauge, just like you were talking about the soil, what is actually affecting the soil the most. You've got to go handle those variables first, because for some people, you put them back into a community, their food matters a lot less. Doesn't mean food does not matter. And I think that's where we get into this, you know, interesting psychological positions of like, it's right? To have the mentality of like, I'm going to have 3 donuts and then I'm going to have 3 apples to undo the 3 donuts. No, that's not how life works. You're going to have the effects of 3 donuts and you'll have the effects of 3 apples, right? Physiologically, your body's going to do the best with all of it. It's going to try to gain something wonderful from even the donuts, right? And then you have a contribution to that conversation, why you ate it. You know, were you doing it because you were afraid of something, and then you change your digestion because the conversation becomes quantum at that point. But just always to keep it super simple, like you look at your life, you look at the soil that you're on, and like if the soil is right next to, you know, some toxic plant, you're not going to go and you're going to go manage what would undo the toxicity. And so that's why protocols, you're trying. It's not effective at all. But the thing that I found is it's a very virtuous way to keep somebody busy. And, you know, this is again, right answers are not true answers. Can parasites do X, Y, and Z? In who would be my next question. What else is in that life? In isolation, that question's irrelevant. Right? So again, we have to have a very scientific way of thinking through even the application. Does that mean you never need to do a parasite cleanse? No, we look in cultures all over the world. They have, you know, different seasons where they incorporate what you could call a parasite cleanse, but I think it's a misnomer. There's so much more robust. We like to pick a piece of it and call it that. And we either want to throw it all out or just latch onto it with everything. But again, when you look into wholesome cultures, you talk to them and they're not going to be like, we're doing this for parasites.
100%.
Right?
That's my point. Like even looking at herbs for like, it makes me so frustrated when people refer to herbs as antimicrobial or having like the same properties as antibiotics. Like antimicrobial, antibiotics. Microbial is life. Biotic is life, anti-life. That's not what these things are. They're conducive to life. They're life-giving. They're not destroying life.
And even in the conversation of herbs, I fell in love with herbs because they're intelligent, right? Life is intelligent. And what you find even within herbal medicine, and they teach you this, that you and I could take the same capsule of, say, some rhodiola or something. It would do in your body what your body needed. It would do in mine what mine needed.
Exactly.
When you mega superdose and try to act like you know what you're doing, you alter biochemical pathways, and that's when you start making a mess of things. But the actual intelligence of a plant, even the beauty of like if your DNA, like say you were watering your garden and your hair or saliva or skin sloughed or a nail sloughed, it changes the plant, and the plant creates medicine for the DNA that was like, think about that. It's beautiful. So again, to isolate down, because even like the same herb that you could say is quote unquote antimicrobial could be an adaptogen, could be also. And so then when I went into even herbal medicine, it's so complex. If you're trying to find truths, what I actually started finding was some of these herbs were actually affecting different parts of human physiology that had nothing to do with the bacteria, the quote unquote, we know this conversation, the virus, the whatever you want to call it, the bad guy. And it had more to do with the system.
Yes.
And so again, it's like if you and I, you know, if somebody took a snapshot of something and wanted a right answer, you could be like, were they in a room talking? Yes. Here's the proof. You'd be like, that was a podcast, that was this. Like, there's so many other questions that should be asked to get to a truth. So the right answer, yes. The true answer, all of this other stuff. And that's exactly what I found when it came to herbalism, to everything, was there is so much more intelligence at play. And we're wanting a certain conclusion so that we can capitalize on that conclusion. That's not how life works. That's why, again, where are we at with all of our advanced everything, with everything that we know? It should be working on everyone at this point, right?
Right.
But it doesn't, because of all of these other factors. So that's even where you have to look at research, because they're like, well, then there's these research studies with bacteria and herbs. And again, I have so many questions before I even entertain the answer. Because again, we all know, like even as doctors, they're like, okay, sometimes you have to adjust for blood pressure if the patient's nervous, quote unquote, white coat syndrome. I'm like, okay, so hold on. I'm changing an objective data point off of something that's not even going on in the body until I'm introduced. And then we're going to say, all of these things with such certainty, when even blood pressure can't be certain, because that's not really that person's blood pressure until that person is in front of you. Or until you change the blood and might have to look at the laboratory values differently if they had a B vitamin before they came, if they are afraid of needles. And you have to take all of this into consideration if you're truly looking at laboratory, diagnostic testing. And that's where I was like, we act like we know, but we don't know. Right? And so then when you're in the world of protocols, again, if I were to say, you need to eat, let's just stick with food because it keeps it super simple, even though it's massively complex. But if I said you need to only eat meat, control for all the pesticides, the GMO, so I'm controlling for a lot of factors that, yes, influence human physiology and biochemistry, right? Because we can't say that pesticides don't have any effect. We know that they do, right? And so just to simplify it all the way down, just to say that you just need to eat steak, right? Grass-fed, all the words steak. Well, if I don't take into consideration that you're stressed out and you're constantly in a fight with maybe your spouse, you're afraid of everything, I don't ask any of those questions. And I feed you steak, I've poisoned you. But the steak is good, and this study said that okay, but again, a right answer is not a true answer. In this scenario, what do we know about the stress response? Is it conducive to digestion? No. It's going to shut it down. Why? That body should not be eating anything. I don't care if it's a steak or a grape. It should not be eating. So now, instead of saying, is steak healthy? We don't care. That's irrelevant. That's like the details of the details. It's not completely irrelevant, but right now that's not our most important question. How is he emotionally? How is he psychologically? How is his nervous system in this moment? And again, nervous system gets taken into different places. Let's just keep it simple. How do you feel? Honestly. I'm actually stressed. I'm thinking about work. Me and her are in a fight, but I don't want to ruffle feathers, but I'm not okay with it. Okay, well then the most appropriate action for you at this point has nothing to do with food. So is it organic? Is it not? It doesn't matter right now. You're not going to digest it either way. You're going to get more benefit out of one, right? I always just tell my patients, now you're just picking what's going to rot the best. Does it matter? Yeah. Does it matter as much? You're dealing with a percentage of a percentage of impact into the body at that point when you're talking food. Oh, but he's on the autoimmune paleo diet. It doesn't matter if you can't digest it. Well, what's governing digestion? Not perfecting and micromanaging the food. That's also not to say the food doesn't matter, right? But it's saying he needs to have the conversation with his spouse. He needs to go and either have something in him that feels relief to some degree about his work, and how do we work there? Well, no, let's talk about food. Food's the truest answer, if I was being the best doctor in the world, would be like, you honestly don't need to eat right now. Or we need to pick a food that's going to rot the best. And that's the most scientific answer you could get, but people don't want it. They'd rather be like, no, I'm eating this, but again, if that worked, because we all know eat the closest to nature. Eat the cleanest you can, where we take care of the land, where we take care of the farmers, that are working the land. eat the close, like that is not something far away from our intellect. And for the most of us, like most part, we're doing the best we can with that. Majority of people that I know are perfecting it. And even like adding in stuff that it's coming from different continents and like we've got more than enough for most people. Why are we still not getting the results? Exactly what you're pointing to with the protocol. They're great questions, but they're the wrong ones. They're beautiful right answers, but they're not the truths. That's where you have to get to a point where you're like, right now, the right answer, I could dazzle you with all the right answers. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to have an action. And so when you're wanting actual action effects in the human body, you have to talk truths to it. Because if that body's stressed out and you're like, but it's an organic grape, it's like, I don't need anything right now. I need you to do what's required. The most appropriate action is maybe get in a confrontation or have a conflict with your spouse. That's the that's the medicine. The reason you're not digesting anything is in what's held at the table, not what's served at the table. That doesn't mean what's served at the table doesn't matter. And that has implications. That's why I'm like, we've got to handle our stuff, and it matters. We should be taking care of our land. We should be choosing with our money. We should be taking care of our farmers. It's an and conversation, not the food doesn't matter, eat candy and do whatever you want because your body only heals and your life is your medicine. It's an and conversation. It's complete radical ownership of all of it. It matters what we do to the land. It matters how the animals are treated. It matters how the plants are treated. But it also matters, and when you're talking just on human, selfish, how we kind of just like human and human health is the only thing that matters, right? You put it in that container, well then what's going on in his mind and his heart matters more than anything on his plate.
Amen. When you talk about ownership too, the thing that like comes up for me that can be so hard for someone who has been victimized, let's say, is if we're taking radical responsibility, radical ownership over our experience. Because let me preface this by saying, to not do that would imply that you have a fundamental powerlessness about you. What does that say about your beliefs? So if you truly believe you have the power of the divine flowing through you, the power of God flowing through you, that you may just need to shake off some pieces of in order to fully express it. If that's the case, that would mean that even in those moments that you were victimized, you had a piece in it, which is hard for people to confront. I mean, shit, it's been hard for me in my life to confront sometimes. But that's the dialectic there. It's like, it's which one are you going to choose there? And it's like, I would rather choose the belief that says, okay, I played a part in that, and I learned something incredible from it, even if it was one of the worst fucking things that I've ever been through. I brought this up on another episode. So I interviewed this lady who was a satanic ritual abuse survivor. And it wasn't her, but another SRA survivor died a couple of times through the satanic ritual abuse. Like she was abused so badly, I think as a child too, and she died during it. When she died, she had near-death experiences. And when she was in those near-death experiences, she deliberately chose to come back each time because she knew that despite the darkest of dark things that a human being can go through, she knew that, okay, this is really fucking hard, but I'm choosing to go back because I see the larger picture of what I am choosing to do and be a part of to eventually lead to the healing that helps eliminate more of this stuff in this reality. Like deliberately choosing that. So my point is like, I don't know, I kind of like answered it from my perspective, I guess, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on like having been victimized, but not remaining in a perpetual state of victimhood, and also taking ownership of like, there was something in me there that was medicine for me, or something in that situation for me that was medicine, something that I could learn from in that. And in either case, right now, it is my responsibility to deal with it.
Yeah. So how I've viewed it, because I've gone through those moments in my life, and just recently out of another chapter of like where I had to take radical ownership to heal it, transform it, move it into something beautiful and worthwhile. Because exactly what you're saying, if you're part of the conversation, you're part of the conversation. So you're part of the conversation, and that's the truth, right? And so this is where, you know, there's a couple of things that I'll speak to with this, because it is exactly that. So I just kind of simplify it down to, imagine you had like a beautiful mansion and somebody came in and destroyed it, like messed up everything, filled it with trash, wild animals, like completely just messed up the inside of this mansion. But it's your mansion. So this is exactly the conversation. Is it your fault that it's a mess inside that house? No. Fault's not even really, it's not going to get you anywhere. Because you could be like, well, did you leave the door unlocked? It doesn't matter. Were you the one that went in there and destroyed everything? No. Okay, so it's not your fault. It's your mansion. You kicked the problem out of the mansion. There's still a mess. So what is it now? It's your responsibility. So what I always look at it as, even when I'm in these hard chapters of my life, I'm like that, but it's conscious contribution, right? Which is exactly what you were saying. It's not, okay, out of service to this person that wronged me, I'm going to clean up my house. And it's also not, I'm going to clean up somebody else's house. You're part of the conversation by even saying it's my house, my mansion. So what it is a conscious contribution. I think there's a difference too between service and contributing, right? And everyone acts like service is like the thing, but again, look at the bacteria. If you said, oh, you were in great service, he'd be like, service? I'm doing my part. Mm-hmm. So again, that's where I always put it back in, is like, okay. So again, even if we look at like traumas handed down in our lineage, and it's not my fault. Okay, but it's here. Do you want to live in a messy house? Or are you going to take radical responsibility and do the work to clean it up? But I didn't do it. That's not what I asked. And then again, who gets the benefit? Because I've had, you know, personal relationships where I'm constantly working on myself, analyzing myself, trying to be, you know, quote unquote better, more loving, more understanding. And then I had a relationship where I felt like it was all used against me. And then I had this like moment of like, well, F that, like never again. But then it got to another point where I saw it from the true perspective of like, in every moment where you handled yourself that way, in integrity, in a state of love, in understanding, in truth, he didn't benefit. He did, it seemed like. You did. You didn't do that work for nothing. It changed you, exactly like you're saying. There's something in it. So there's one point that you can look at it and be like, somebody came in and destroyed my magical little garden and my little sparkly, innocent, happy home, and they ruined it. But what if you didn't know that everything that you had to go through to clean it up was going to give you a gift greater than anything that you had before? Right? You're just like, but I don't want to clean it up. It's not my fault. Again, say it. It's not my fault, but it's definitely my responsibility. Why? Are you here? Yes. Did it do something in you? Yes. Let's contribute, right? And again, you know, because as, you know, anytime you're in a position of like, quote unquote, leadership or doctor or whatever, like part of the unraveling I had to do in myself is like, well, I wasn't perfect. And be like, okay, well, again, put that in a container of service, and maybe that's a worthwhile conversation. What you're looking at as imperfection is part of the conversation of contribution. You're going to be able to give people more from this than any perfect relationship, or not falling for a quote unquote, you know, all these words that we could put on what it was. But it was what it was. And again, we're always like, put it on an athlete too. You could have two athletes both doing wall sits for the same amount of time. And you could find somebody who could adjust their body in a certain way to make it less demanding. And then you could have the other person make it the most demanding. Same amount of time, same everything, but one's going to actually get more from it. And not just more on the muscular level, more on the mental level. Mm-hmm. It pushed something in there that nothing else could touch. Oh, how did you become this person even though we did the same workouts for years and years and years? Oh, we weren't doing the same workout. That's the thing. It looked like we were. What was going on? That's why nobody really has access to that true work. And I think we're called into something even greater than we could ever access when you're in a position, and there's another story I'll tie onto this, when you're put in a position to do the work that from your perspective wasn't yours to do. And we see that, I don't know how many times that again, if you've ever been blessed with parents or anybody that's cared for you, there's some level of that's like, I caused a mess that wasn't yours to clean up, right? And as kids, you don't think of that way. But again, contribution. Move away from service. Service is, I'm so great and I'm so good and I'm going to give you some of that. Contribution to me is, I'm part of it. I've been in the mess too. Let me help you walk through cleaning it up. And then it automatically, when you put yourself, again, back in your place, in the truest, most beautiful way, it's like, okay, well, I was even in this conversation because of something that needed, and like using the word healing is, again, hard. We'll find a better word for it. But there was something in me that needed development, maybe, balance, growth, boundaries. And I didn't know it was there until you know it's there, right? And the second you know it's there, then it becomes not your fault, also not theirs, but your responsibility. And again, it's the only question that matters at that point. And there's this beautiful story I heard one time where there's this like billionaire man, and he had a carpenter who always built his mansions. I'm probably getting the story wrong. If you know the story, you can make it perfect. But basically the story went that he had this carpenter who always did things right. He always did everything right. And he didn't get paid a lot, but he got paid enough. Well, the billionaire was coming up on a time of his life where he was passing. And so he said, I want you, for the last part of my life, I want you to use the most expensive things, cut no corners, make the most beautiful, most amazing home with this money. And the carpenter worked tirelessly and got all of the best of everything. And he didn't cut corners, and he made sure his work was just as good as he could do. And when the house was complete, he went to the billionaire and said, your house is ready. And he said, perfect, go move in. And to me, that's this too. He was working and doing right and being true and just in his integrity. And it's like, you know, I'm building a mansion and going home and staying in a shack and trying to feed my family. And I do think life has this thing of like, there's a reason. Like he probably was like, again, I've built you 10 mansions. You need one more? And instead of having that in his heart and in his actions, he's like, okay. And then how life is like, okay, you just built your mansion. And that's exactly what we're all doing. That's where when we can actually see it, and like kind of the promise that I have to like the young child version of me is like to hold her hand and be like, I built your mansion. Through how I lived, through who we were, right? Through like, I promise you, like, I don't know, and that I always have like even in my classes or with my patients, I'm like, have dinner with the young, like the version of you that you see as the most spicy, the most you version of you, whatever age that was. Have dinner with them. Have a true conversation. Don't lie to them at all. And let them look at you and be like, I'm going to be you. And you're like, yeah. And let them ask you like with complete innocence, what are we doing? Do we have horses? Do we have, all of these things that you promised me, like when we were going through hard times when we were little? Do we have those? I know for me personally, all of the promises I made to my little self, healing through things where you could literally go back and be like, that little girl didn't deserve that. That young woman, like, it's not her, like, you could be like, yeah, she was a victim. How did she live through it? Because then what she did in those moments, what we have the opportunity to do in every moment, is I'm not choosing that word. That word will taint my body, taint my spirit, taint my heart, taint my soul, taint every action moving forward.
Just like diagnoses.
Exactly. So I will not accept that. And instead, I will accept, and, they say, how to adopt a cat. A stray cat is give it a name, right? So either you leave that where it is and don't find some clever way to carry it. It's not mine to carry. It's mine to move past. It's mine to, make beautiful. Like, I think we are given life moments where it's like, again, what are you going to do with this? And you can either be like, I'm going to let it destroy me. I'm going to let it steal my voice. And tell this to the little girl or little boy that survived all of these things up into this point. Every time this happened, every time you made a promise to yourself that said, if I survive this, I will never again what? Or if I survive this, I will what? Did you do those things? And like for me, they were as simple as, I'm going to have a cat eating at the table. I'm going to, do this. I'm never going to be told what to do and what not to do. And I'll stand up for myself, and it was like these things. And when you just make good on those promises of every time, because every time we've had a trauma, you could probably look in on that person and say, they are a victim. But every beautiful story, that person has chosen a different title and said, no, I'm the victor. I transform it, right? And in this holds something that's going to make me far greater than who I could have ever been without it. And that's our opportunity. And that's how we can live.
Beautiful. So well said. Cassie Wuthrich?
Wuthrich.
Okay.
All of it. It's all here.
Oh, man. Thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate everything you stand for and what you're doing for people, and for providing this place.